You're listening to Between Pages and Friends, a book club podcast hosted by Con and Lauren, two besties who read a lot of books, and John and Kyle, our supportive gamer husbands who've agreed to read with us. I'm Lauren.
I'm Kyle.
I'm John.
And I'm Con. Welcome back to our Throne of Glass book club. In this episode, we are finishing part 1 of Queen of Shadows, chapters 26 to 47. There will be no spoilers for future chapters or books here, so if you've only read up through part 1 of Queen of Shadows, this is a safe space to freak out with us. Additionally, this is your mild content warning. We will be discussing themes from this book that include both missing fingers and missing undergarments.
If you're dying to discuss these episodes with us and an amazing community of other book lovers, check out our Patreon. You can join our Discord for $5 a month in the Snack Court tier, where we have now dedicated forums for every episode of this podcast. If you'd also like early access to new episodes, merch discounts, a monthly book club, and more, you can join the Petering Book Club for $10 a month. Our Patreon's linked in the show notes or description box below.
Lastly, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you're listening. Writing a review and sharing with a friend is by far the best way to support the show. Actually, here's a recent review on Apple Podcasts from Paige KG, who writes, "Best book club podcast I've listened to. I read the Throne of Glass series and had no one to talk to about it with the first time. Now I'm rereading the series with you all, and it has made it even more enjoyable. It's like sitting with my friends, cutting up and discussing the books together. I love your all's banter, and you've made me feel like a friend in extension. Thanks for making this podcast. I love it." Thank you so much, Paige, for that review. So sweet.
We are all friends.
So many friends.
You can be our friend, Paige.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
Between
it's
pages.
Pages and friends.
Oh my gosh.
It's coming full circle.
Oh my goodness.
We had a bunch of friends and we finally got a page.
We finally got one. We did it.
Thanks, Paige.
Made our dream come true. And now it's time for this week's pronunciation guide. So over to you, Con.
I thought you were going to do this.
Oh, sorry. I actually didn't even see that.
You don't have to. I just put it in there because you like it.
They're expecting it now.
Yeah. Now it's time for this week's pronunciation guide. Over to you, Quan.
Thanks, Juan. This is not super long, so let's get into it. First up, we have Word Hound, Aelin's name for the gargoyle thing she saw in the sewers. Sen, one of the rebel leaders with whom Chaol met regularly, not to be confused with Ren, even though they are spelled almost identically. Stevan, the Volg commander Aelin brought to Arobynn. Hinsel Cormac, the man Aelin specifically disguised herself as while rescuing Aedion from the castle, and also one of Arobynn's most loyal clients and investors. Temis, the goddess of wild things. And lastly, Solomare, the city Rowan and Lorcan had obliterated at Maeve's request nearly 2 centuries ago. Now it is time for some wild chapter recaps. Back to you, Juan.
Thanks, Quan. Okay, folks, do me a favor. Go on, scooch up on there to the edge of your seat, because that's where we're living for this section's chapter recap. So here we go. Aelin helps Aedion with some physical rehab, fingers crossed for his mental well-being. He talks about claiming the blood oath. Aelin doesn't tell him yet about Rowan already blood-sworn to her. Awkward. Aelin follows a Volg commander to the sewers, where he stops at a pool and a creature rises from it. A living version of one of the gargoyles from the Black Clock Tower. She dubs it a word hound. The soldier reports some information to it, and the creature responds with the king's voice. In a moment of bonding solidarity, Aelin and Aedion show each other their scars. After a night out on the town, Nezrin, Aedion, and Aelin are heading back when somebody stops them in their tracks. And Rowan Whitethorn is in Rifthold, baby! Okay. Rowan and Aelin reconvene. He meets Aedion, and Rowan sniffs out that Aedion is Gavriel's son.
Oh my goodness.
Rowan casually breaks the news that he is bloodsworn to Aelin, and Aedion does not take it well. Rowan shares the reason that he is in Rifthold. Lorcan is here, most likely sent by Maeve to track Aelin and steal the third word key were she to find it, and most likely kill her. Aelin makes Rowan sweat. If you know, you know. We meet not Dorian for coffee, only it's not coffee, it's the crowns of conquered kings and or queens atop pedestals in some secret room under the castle. Okay. Up in Morath, Manon walks in on the Duke and Coltane. torturing a poor soldier. Get your mind out of the gutter. Manon is a bit taken back by Cultain using magic, something called shadow fire. The Duke tells Manon that the testing on the yellow legs has been a success and alludes to some of his other plans and another quote-unquote weapon that her grandmother and the witches are apparently helping it with. Manon then tasks Elide to sneak down and find out what exactly is going on in the chambers under the castle. Elide finds Vernon, seducing Cultain. He's a super creep, he's super creepy, wow. In kind of a bold move, Elide bails her out. She's having these small moments of having a backbone. Back in the Stinky City, Aedion is training with Rowan, and Lysandra shows up. She gawks at Rowan. Who wouldn't, though? Am I right, ladies?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Heard that. Okay. Aelin
meets with Chaol to tell him about the sewers and the wagon full of prisoners headed to Morath. Aelin gives Rowan a touring of charming old Rifthold. She takes him to visit the theater and makes her play the piano on the stage, and she teaches him how to play, which is kind of cute. Chaol and Nezrin save the prisoners headed to Morath. Chaol asks her if she wants to get a drink in an awkward, friend zone, used to be lovers but could still hook up, but friends don't let friends take advantage of each other unless it's for sex type of thing. So Aelin sneaks out and gets Lorcan to trail her, and she leads him into the sewer tunnels and right into Vogue and Wordhound Incorporated. What an incredible moment. Lorcan survives, surprisingly or not surprisingly. He catches up to Aelin, but Rowan is there to help her. Lorcan ends up telling them that if he dies while he's here, Maeve will offer aid to the king against Aelin. And we get another coffee date with not Dorian, only it's not coffee. It's a large despair smoothie with a garnish of someone who recognizes him. Hello. In other news, Rowan's keen nose sniffs out another startling discovery that Lysandra is a shapeshifter. What? Throw me in the pond and consider me knackered. Lysandra also delivers a package to Aelin with another warning about Arobynn and his plans. They receive Arobynn's invitation to dinner and the favor owed to him. He's fed up. It's been too long. Give me my Vogue. And in this little section, we get a sense that there is more to this with the secret planning of Aelin and Lysandra. We find out that Aelin used Lorcan to see if the Wordhounds could be killed by normal means, which they can, and also to get the king and the remaining Wordhounds to pursue Lorcan for killing it. Cue Jurassic Park clever girl line here. What an incredible little maneuver she did with Lorcan. So they grab a Vogue commander. They interrogate him on their own first before the dinner with Arobynn. She speaks to the man still fighting inside the body and makes a deal with him. Later, she sneaks out again to do what we can only assume is another step of her master plan that she's clearly not telling anyone about. Before going to dinner, however, she visits Sam's grave with Rowan, which is a great moment in the book. To Morath! Elide takes a role as laundress to eventually make it down to the chambers under the castle. She sees inside one of the rooms and what is being done to the witches and the creatures that they are birthing. She tells Manon what's going on in between bouts of puking. Astrid freaks the F out, ends up getting demoted again, and will receive a punishment for her insolence. Aedion, Rowan, and Aelin prepare for dinner with His Highness the Insufferable Assassin Prick, TM. They arrive at the Assassin's Keep, and Arobynn greets them at the front door, pleasantries, etc., etc. He compliments Aelin's dress and her scent. Rowan then thanks Arobynn for the oil, noting that his skin was dry. What a power move, my man. They go down to the dungeons. Arobynn gets what he needs from the demon, and they head up for dinner. And through the dinner and some of the conversation that happens, we start getting glimpses of Aelin's brilliant plan and what she's been up to. Her and Arobynn end up meeting alone in the drawing room, and she finally gets back the amulet of Orinth, only for Arobynn to put that damn black ring on her finger before she leaves. Bah! But alas, remember when I said Aelin's master plan? The ring was a ruse, a fake they planted on the Vogue guy, and all the info to Arobynn was made up. So it was all to show Arobynn's hand and his true intentions. She also, by the way, had a replica of the amulet made, smart. Back at the apartment, Aelin kind of makes a move on Rowan, but he shuts it down, and they kind of have an awkward moment there. We find out that Aelin smuggled Lysandra a note saying that she could kill Arobynn, and During the blessed thundering downpour that sweeps over Rifthold, Lysandra slits Arobynn's throat in his sleep.
Oh, what's happening? Oh.
Hear ye, the sweet songs of liberation fill the air, as the very earth beneath our feet doth rejoice. The sun shineth brighter this day, and the skies are bluer than ever before. The birds do sing a sweeter melody, for they too sense the lifting of the dread that hath loomed over us all. Gather, ye kind folk, and let us raise our voices in a chorus of joy and gratitude, for the tyrant's reign is ended, and we are free at last. No longer shall we tremble in fear of his wrath. I just realized that this is very long.
That's okay. Keep going. It's so funny.
No longer shall we tremble in fear of his wrath, nor cower beneath the weight of his unjust laws. No more shall we toil in despair, our sweat and labor reaped by his greed. For the tyrant that accursed scourge upon our lives is banished from this world, and we are free to shape our destiny anew. Rejoice one and all, for justice hath prevailed. Let us honor the fallen, those who sacrificed all for this cause, and let their legacy guide us as we step forth into a future of our own making. May we be ever vigilant that ne'er again shall such darkness be allowed to take root in our land. So come forth and celebrate. Let the wine flow and the feasts abound, for today marks the triumph of good or evil and the birth of a brighter morrow.
Huzzah! Huzzah! Yes.
Aelin puts on her mask as Selena Sardothian one last time as she heads to the Assassin's Keep summoned by the lawyers. The bankmaster comes with Arobynn's will. He left everything to Aelin, as we find out because all of her nights out and trips to the bank allowed her to forge the will. And in her final interaction with Arobynn in the dungeons, she chops his fucking head off. Ding dong, the king is dead. Which old king? The assassin king. Ding dong, the assassin king. Oh, I messed it up. Crap.
Again.
Ding dong, the witch.
I'm
Ding
excited.
dong, the king is dead. Which old king? The assassin king. Ding dong, the assassin king is dead.
Huzzah!
We got two celebrations.
And that wraps up this chapter section.
That was the best one yet, John.
Thanks.
That was it.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Was it a scepter? Were you
Yes,
holding,
thank you.
Okay, just
Made
making
of
sure.
tinfoil.
What did you make it? Tinfoil?
Brilliant.
Yeah,
man.
I was gonna say like aluminum foil, aluminium for our listeners.
Aluminium.
across the
Yes,
pond.
for the pond listeners.
the pond. listeners.
They're in the pond. Oh,
They're in
Greg,
the
if
pond.
you're listening.
Listening on the
First of all,
podcast.
what you doing in my waters?
Good stuff.
You ever drink Bailey's from a shoe?
Bailey's from a shoe.
think
What
you
you
could
doing
ever
in
love
these
me?
waters?
That was amazing. Good job, John.
Thanks. Thanks for all your participation. I appreciate
Yes,
it.
10 out of
Old
10.
John.
Wow, some of your best work.
Old John.
Thanks.
Old John.
It was.
All right. Well, let's jump into the chapters. I'm sorry, I'm still laughing. It was so good. Okay, chapter 26. I feel like awkward going into like a not so funny moment right away, but like this whole blood oath thing with Aedion and his POV is like the most awkward.
So awkward.
Kind of turns into like annoying at some point too with the blood oath, but just like how much honor he's going to receive from it. And, you know, it's just like for one person. And he said something like, it was my right then and now, and I can wait until we're in Terracin, but it's going to be me who takes it, no one else. And she's just like, right. Yup. Like the most awkward interaction ever. Just, yep. Poor Aedion. He's got one thing
So
going
awkward.
for him, and then, oh well.
Though, like, I mean, he literally did for his whole life have that one thing going for him. So I get it. I get the concern there on some level.
Poor
Yeah.
guy. And to add insult to injury, literally, this part where it's like just one line about how Aedion needed help going to the bathroom when he was in recovery. And it said having Aelin help him the first time had been awkward enough that he couldn't even go until she started singing a body tune at the
Yeah.
top of her lungs and turned on the sink faucet. all the while helping him stand over the toilet. This is just another one of those scenes that, like, I would pay to see happen.
For sure.
We've
You
all
would pay
been
to
there,
see a
right?
man go to the bathroom.
In this context, sure.
Sorry. Just opened that up for me. No, I highlighted that note too, though, because I thought it was funny.
I noted Kale's pity party when Aedion wouldn't let him blame Aelin for the king burning down the Shadow Market. He says to Kale, you want to pick a fight, you come to me, not her. And I was like, yes, you tell him, my man. Now she's got like, it's just nice to have somebody like have her back from like Kale crapping all over her all the time.
Yeah. For real. Well, especially with Kale, because it's been just like her with Rowan or whoever, and they pump her up and help and whatever,
yeah.
or her with Kale, where it's just like negative. So it was nice,
Yes,
like seeing the
yeah.
crossover for her.
Yeah.
But she kind of continues that, and I'm just going to read this entire little paragraph because it's epic. But this is Aelin, and it said, Aelin hissed, need I remind you, Captain, that you went to Endovir and did not blink at the slaves at the mass graves? Need I remind you that I was starved and chained, and you let Duke Parrington force me to the ground at Dorian's feet while you did nothing? And now you have the nerve to accuse me of not caring when many of the people in the city have profited off the blood and misery of the very people you ignored?
Yes.
And I was like, yes,
So awful.
tell him. Like, and then the fact that he just like leaves and it's just like, I feel like nothing went through his thick skull.
Yes,
So
so true.
I have tried to hold out as long as possible for Kale. Like, you guys like immediately started like bashing on Kale, and I was like, guys, but maybe like let's see it from his point of view. But I feel like I'm finally there now. He's just like the worst.
Yeah.
Get over it, man.
I know. I've really tried. And I know there's some people who like commented and stuff too that they held out for Kale. So I'm sorry to let those people down who are with me on that one, but it's just one too many. And I wish this was the first time in this chapter chunk that we get this attitude or these kind of conversations from him, but it's not. And then he
There's
like
more.
leaves. Yeah. And then he like leaves and goes and talks with Nesrin, and she was trying to be nice, and he's just like a complete douche to her.
Yeah.
And so she literally doesn't say anything. She just walks away, which I was like,
love
good
that.
for you. Like, just turn around and walk. Like,
Yeah, and then it's like his inner thoughts says at least he couldn't hate himself any more than he already did. And I just kind of like rolled my eyes. I was like, boo freaking who, Kale? Like, really? Cry me a river, buddy.
I only noted like what a ridiculous thing that is to say to yourself, like, well, thank God I'm already at rock bottom. Like, what kind of reassurance is that for yourself anyway? Not good self-talk. It would be great to say to bullies, if they're bullying you, say, guys, I'm already at my worst. They might be like, oh, all right, sorry.
Already
Yeah,
at
that's
my
good for
worst.
him.
Oh my gosh. Well, hopefully that's a good sign that he can't get any worse than he currently is.
It's only up from here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Let's hope.
Literally.
small changes, buddy. Just,
Girl can dream.
just take some steps up the stairs.
Yeah. Or grab a pickaxe. He could get deeper.
honestly, if he would just like stop talking, like he would be doing like leaps and bounds better than what he's doing right
That's
now.
true. That's a very
He
good
just
point.
says really dumb stuff, and he just shouldn't say anything. But anyway.
He does. Oh my gosh. Okay. Chapter 27. My first note literally was, Lauren, I'm so sorry the gargoyles aren't actually cool and nice in this series.
Yeah, they're not Hunchback and Notre Dame gargoyles here.
Yeah.
But the king literally speaking through the mouth of the word hound is creepy beyond all get out. It's not, I don't like it.
Yeah. Well, Connor and I read a series where like the gargoyles are actually people, and they got like frozen, basically like magic got taken away while they were in gargoyle form. So like hundreds of years later, they're all actual people, but they like were alive and like remembered all the things. It was just really cool done. And I've never seen gargoyles done that way. So now anytime I see, like we were in Chicago and there was gargoyles all over this building, and I just like sat there and looked at them. They were across from a restaurant, and Kyle's like, oh, there's that gargoyle building you like. And I was like, oh yeah, there it is. I just love them. I think they're cool. So yeah, these ones are lame because they're not real people, but like with the magic going through them, with like the king being able to talk to them. But yeah, I'm nervous with the king being able to, like, I know she set them on Lorcan, but like the king knows that there is a Fae male there, and for all we know, he's gonna get it confused with Rowan or something. I just feel like it's gonna end up biting them in the butt. For now, it was a cool move. So we'll see.
I know it said that they were like magical moving wordhound gargoyles, because you said, Con, that they were creepy to you. For some reason, though, when I was reading about them, I could not see them as anything but, I feel like it wanted me to picture it like the Cave of Wonders, like, who disturbed my slumber sort of movement. But all I saw was a gargoyle with an open mouth and like an intercom speaker that the king was like, so what'd you guys find? That sort of thing. And I was like, for some reason, I couldn't get it out of my head, and that's what I always picture. So it's not creepy at all to me. It's hilarious.
That's what it is now.
Their head just sort of swivels. Oh.
Like a bad animatronic at an amusement park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. No, I was imagining it like being made of stone or whatever, but it was fully animated and talking, like its mouth and whatever. But I like your version better.
But I was like, I can't.
I guess in my head I was picturing it as like basically a skinwalker made of stone. Like I know it was like the gargoyles, but in my head it was just like creepy like skinwalker where it looked more like a person, but like still like made of stone. I don't know.
Mine was like the lion you'd find in front of a library, maybe with wings. But that was what I was picturing.
Okay.
No, I imagine like a more bird-like type creature and be way bigger than the person talking to them. Probably just because like actual gargoyles are up on a roof and they might be my size, but they look big. But I don't know.
John, did you picture anything specific for those?
Nope.
Okay, great.
Pretty
Even
standard
better.
looking. Pretty standard looking gargoyle.
Just your typical word hound.
Yeah, your standard option A gargoyle.
Yeah, that's right.
Sure.
Tiny wings.
Oh,
Okay.
Oh, tiny. Okay.
Yeah.
so you were thinking like the Hunchback of Notre Dame ones.
Yeah.
I was.
Like they
With it,
hop
like,
around,
hopping
little
around
chess
and-
pieces.
Yeah,
Oh.
you know.
Yeah.
Got it.
Maybe a little bit bigger because it said it was taller than like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
dude or whatever. But
I was thinking like huge.
oh, you know
I was
what?
thinking
Actually,
pretty
now that I
big.
remember, I think my initial picture was almost like very like alien-esque, like coming out of the water.
Just to be clear, we're not saying Aelin, we're saying alien.
Alien. Yeah, like the movie
Well,
Alien.
like Ridley Scott.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. Sure.
Like the mother alien.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Sure.
Sounds
Yeah.
great.
Mother. She's giving.
Anyways, back to Aedion. He is probably super great, but I'm just kind of annoyed with him in these chapters. Like I said a little bit last time with the blood oath, and now it's like she comes home late according to him, and he's like all mad that she's late from curfew or something. And it's like pacing around the living room waiting up till she gets home, and he does that a couple times. And honestly, Rowan does it a little bit with them just being like super overprotective, but hopefully they'll, especially after like this epic move she makes at the end, and just to be like, to finally like just trust her and let her do her thing and sit back and let her be awesome. But for right now, Aedion's just okay.
It's a bit much.
Just a bit. Especially because like you were in prison, dude. Like she literally saved your life. She can do a lot, but sure, she's out late. Anyways, but it led into them having this really cute conversation with them like trading what scars they got and going back and forth and just having like this cute little bonding moment. But I love this one part where she said, so she peeled back the collar of her tunic to reveal a thin necklace of scars. Baba Yellowlegs, matron of the Yellowlegs witch clan, gave me these scars when she tried to kill me. I cut off her head, then cut her corpse into little bits, then shoved it all into her oven of her wagon. And then he says, I wonder who killed Yellowlegs. And she said she could have embraced him for that sentence alone, for the lack of fear or disgust in his eyes. And so that was just, first of all, disgusting, but also kind of cute. I just love her like finding people, because I think she's still battling all of like who she is and what she should be doing because of like the negative from Kale. And so I just love to see the support. And then he like comes out with the sword of Orinth and is gonna like give it to her like it's her father's sword, and she says, you know, it belongs to you, there's no one else who deserves it. And so he like keeps the sword, and that was like a whole little precious moment between them. So as much as he's going through trust issues, I guess, or maybe like alpha energy issues, I love them together. Like I hope that we can all figure it out for the sake of the court, I guess is what they're calling them, like is what it is. I don't know, their friendship. I don't know.
Sure.
For them.
The friendship court.
I hope they can figure it out for them. The friendship court. That's so cute.
I just want to give a quick shout out to Nezrin, because I love that she just doesn't give a crap about feelings, like hers or anybody else's, and she just says what she's honestly thinking, which, you know, is refreshing in a novel. it just seems like she reads Chaol so well, and I feel like she's so good for him in this whole pity party phase that he's stuck in, because she's really good at just like calling him out, and even if it doesn't go through the first time, like he doesn't seem to be taking a lot of it to heart. Sometimes it seems like he does, but even the way that she's talking about him here in chapter 27, and she says, I think he's content to be miserable, and she like waves a hand in dismissal. We could die any day, any hour. I don't see a point in brooding. I love that for her. But I also like just kind of love that even though she and Chaol aren't like together, I think she's a good influence for him to have around right now.
She's a good side character. Like, she's just kind of like cool with whatever.
Yeah.
She's game. She's helpful.
Yeah.
I don't know. She gives good advice.
Exactly what Chaol needs, too, is someone who doesn't care at all, to show that it is okay to not put so much into something. Like, it's okay to just do what you need to do and not get so emotionally involved into everything everyone does. But
relatable. Anyways.
Yeah, same.
We'll let you guys figure out which one of us is Chaol and which one of us is Nesrin. Awkward. Anyways. Oh, okay. So I was texting Connor, and as I do all day, every day. And I was also reading, like, and I was texting her about my reading as I was kind of like waiting for her responses, because she's obviously living her life and I'm reading in between. And I get to the part where Aedion like smells something that's familiar, and it was like leading up to, and I didn't even read the next paragraph that said it was Rowan. Instead, I'm like texting, I stopped and I text Connor and I was like, if Rowan's about to show up in Rifthold, I'm gonna freak out. It was so funny, because then obviously he does, and I was freaking excited, so excited, and just like her like running to hug him, and her crying, and the whole reunion was just the absolute best. And of course, I've been waiting for Rowan to show up, so super excited about that. But then later this week, I was posting on Instagram. I posted a picture of me like just in love with Rowan Whitethorn, because who is it? And one of the like Instagram sounds was a voice recording from the like audiobook with like cool soundtrack music in the background, and it said, who is that? Aedion said, Rowan Whitethorn, and whatever, and it was like literally this sentence, but I was like, I'm so glad I read that like 2 days ago, or it would have been spoiled by a stupid TikTok sound. So and for all you first time readers out there, please be careful on the internet. Don't,
it's rough out there.
It's so rough.
I read the first 3 chapters like a day after, and there were a couple times where I asked Lauren, like, hey, have you like read anything yet? Because it was literally the second chapter, and she'd be like, no, I haven't started yet. I was like, oh, you might want to get on it. There's a lot of chapters. It's trying not to like hint at what was happening, but I knew she would be excited for specifically chapter 27. I was like, I'm not going to tell you, nothing major's happening, but you probably should. You want to catch up pretty soon.
And boy, oh boy,
so
did
cute.
I.
And then she sped through the rest once he was there.
Yeah, honestly.
How can you not? I loved this scene so much. I was like getting a little teary-eyed at their little reunion. Just like her excitement, both of them, their excitement about seeing each other again, even though they've been going back and forth about like, oh, we're just friends. What is this? I don't know. But then in her head, she's like, he was here. He was here. He was here. And then he says, I wandered until I picked up your scent. I just was gushing over that, because I'm like, clearly he listened to every detail she told him about where she was going and what Rifthold was like, and then figured out a way to find her all on his own, because he missed her too. I mean, he had something important to tell her, but also he missed her. I die.
That's just like one of those things you can't say in the modern world. Like,
I was just
I
that.
found you over here because I could smell you.
Yeah. If you want to make someone super insecure just at the mall while you're meeting up, like, oh yeah, I just followed your scent, they'll instantly be like, what do you mean?
But it's cute when a fey male says it.
It's so cute when a fey male, a 300-year-old fey male says it.
Tucking my hair behind my headphones.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. And then I had to highlight this line, because Lauren and I always call this out in every book we read. She gripped him harder, savoring the corded muscle of his forearms, the eternal strength of him. I said, okay, forearms.
There's just something about forearms. And it could have just been forearms. Like, it could have just been like rolled up sleeves, but it had to be the corded muscles of his forearms, like Sarah.
She knows what she's doing to us.
I know. I also highlighted this, and I just left 3 of the like little like red sweaty emojis. We're just like
panting emoji.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I love that she like immediately starts making jokes, or she's like, I'm crying because you smell so running bad. My eyes are watering.
Yeah, and we also find out that he has a haircut, and she's kind of dogging on him a little bit for it. But she says, when you shift, will your hawk form be plucked then? Cracked me up. By far her best roast yet, for sure.
Hope it is.
That was great.
He doesn't answer, so it kind of makes me think it is. But
That is kind of funny.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, we're shifting right into me crying. I had an addition to the cry counter, and it was while Rowan was taking a bath of all things.
Jeez.
It was just so beautiful.
It's so beautiful.
Teardrop.
those forearms
But the reason,
in the water
glistening.
brings tears to any woman's eyes.
Okay, but for real, I was crying because I didn't catch this on my first read. And I saw someone point it out at some point, like since my first read, but I had completely forgotten about it. And then I got here and it's just like, they don't even draw attention to it. But I'm going to read a part from The Assassin's Blade first, and this is when she's with Sam. It says, she closed her eyes and leaned her head against his. He smelled of her lavender soap, her expensive lavender soap that she'd once warned him to never use again. He probably had no idea what soap she'd even been scolding him about. She'd have to start hiding her beloved toiletries and leave out something inexpensive for him. Sam wouldn't be able to tell the difference anyway. And then later in The Assassin's Blade, they're in like a flirty fight, and she's yelling at him about how he used her lavender soap, and then he kisses her. And then at the very end of the book, she is with his corpse, and it says the body still smelled faintly like Sam and like the cheap soap she'd made him use because she was so selfish that she couldn't let him have her lavender soap. And we talked about that in the Assassin's Blade episodes, but then in this like reunion, you know, she's in the bathroom with him, he's taking a bath, and it just says she mutely handed him her favorite lavender scented soap, which he sniffed at, sighed in resignation, and then began using. And then when he starts to try and use it in her hair, she's like, wait, no, like use this. And she gives him like more of her expensive products and stuff, and they don't even draw attention to it, but it just like made me so emotional because this was such a huge deal for her, and that's probably all she was thinking about in this moment. But she didn't even say anything to him because like she just didn't need to, and this was like a moment she never got to have with Sam that now she gets to have with Rowan. And I feel like there's a few of those in this chapter section, and it just made me cry. And so there's me crying about Rowan being in the bath.
You texted me that you cried. Yeah, and I was like, about what? And then when I was putting in the notes, and then I left 5 cry emojis next to that like quote, and I was like, oh, this is probably what she cried about. Because it is really precious. And obviously she's like gone through a ton to realize something like fancy lavender soap is not that important, like
right.
You know, being an Endovier and wherever else, but also just to realize life is too short and I care about you, and so I'm going to treat you as nice as I would treat myself, kind of a thing.
Yeah,
and it's just really cute.
Yeah, and right along those same lines, something Lauren and I have talked about in real life, but also in our like monthly reads videos on YouTube is, and I think even in our bonus Q&A episode, is that we always like think it's funny when a character washes another character's hair in a book, because it always sounds so awkward. We've had a few conversations about this on social media as well. But as much as we joke about it, I freaking love it here when Aelin washes Rowan's hair, because I mean, they're obviously attracted to each other, but like this is such an incredibly sweet moment. He's not injured. Like there's really no reason for her to be in there with him other than that she wants to spend time with him because they missed each other and they just like don't want to miss anything else. But she's just like taking care of him in such a gentle and vulnerable way, and he just doesn't even understand the full extent of it. And I was just gushing through this whole scene.
I didn't think about it while reading. I thought about this when I saw your note. It didn't stand out to me. I was just like, oh, like whatever. And she grabbed the soap and she's just doing it. And I didn't even think like, oh, there's the washing hair in the shower trope like we do every other time. But I think it's because she washes his hair instead of him washing her hair. Because the problem with that trope for me is I don't want someone washing my own hair. I have a routine. And it gets followed and it matters. And obviously this was the other way. So maybe I just didn't relate the same. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, I'm with you there. But then we get this really funny moment where she was leaving after like helping him in the bath. And it said it was an effort not to peek over her shoulder. And then it says in italics, "Don't you even dare." A voice hissed in her head. Right. She called that voice common sense and she'd listen to it from now on. But I'm like, the "don't you even dares" in italics, which have been conveniently gone the entire first half of this book when Rowan wasn't there. But as soon as Rowan's back, here's those italics. So I'm pretty sure she was thinking that Rowan could read her mind or whatever. I'm pretty sure that's where it's going. I have a lot of conversations tonight about the italics, so everyone be ready for it. But this is the first one, and I'm pretty sure they're back because of Rowan. Anyways.
I'm here for it. Quick note about the deleted scene from Heir of Fire that we read in our bonus chapters episode. I am so glad we read it because I didn't realize that they had referenced it again later. It came up twice in this chapter section, which was just kind of fun because I actually knew what they were talking about. It went right over my head the first time. So I'm glad we got to read that.
Well, and it almost felt like I knew like a little secret about the book because I had seen like behind the scenes and knew more details of it, even though they haven't said it straight up in this book. So that was definitely a fun moment too.
Okay, Gavriel being Aedion's father, first of all, is insane. When I first read this scene, I was like, okay, wow, like that's super confident of Rowan to just blurt that out immediately upon meeting him. Because I was like, okay, they look similar, but like so does Aelin. I wasn't making the connection at first that Rowan could like scent it on him. Like their scents were the same. That obviously is much more confirmation. I was like, oh, okay. But the first time I read it, I was like, whoa, you just said that out loud.
The first time I read it, I was like, who's Gavriel? And then kept reading. I was like, oh, the guy who was like, asked how old Aelin was and was helpful
Rowan's kitty cat
in
friend.
the cadre. Yes, exactly. It took me a second, though, because all of the, is it the cadre? Is that what they're calling them?
Yeah.
Like, other than Lorcan, I guess, we don't really know anything about them. I mean, we don't really know anything about Lorcan other than that he's here, but... Anyways, it took me a second to remember who that was. But I guess I should have just left this with my other italics conversation because I'm back at it already. But these italics conversations is with Rowan and Aedion. So I thought that was interesting because so far we've only seen it with Rowan and Aelin. And I thought maybe it was like a them, like a Karanom thing or something. I don't really know.
Yeah.
But it was like the prince's mouths quirked into a smile as if saying to Aedion, italics, you think you could take me, cub? And Aedion grinned, italics, any place, any time, prince. And I was like, okay. Like,
Seems too specific to not be an actual conversation.
Yes.
But that's like I've held back a long time, but this is the first time that I'm like, this is my argument for a lot of it not being a mental conversation, because there are faces that people make that are social cues to understand where they're coming from. And it even says specifically for this one, as if saying to Aedion.
Right.
Like he made a face saying, I can take you. There's lots of nonverbals people can do to pull that off. And later on, it's between different things that aren't even Rowan and Aelin. It could be between them. I'm not refuting that because they have much more detailed conversations in their italics. They say things that I don't think could be conveyed with just the facial expression. But this one specifically, I do think is just them smiling in an attempt to intimidate or challenge each other. But I don't like how she doesn't differentiate it. Like, she should use something different than italics than...
Well, I feel like it's like leading up to some big reveal that he could do this the whole time. Yeah. And it's like, just say it. Like, we can already tell. Especially because, like, later, Aedion is even like, I hate it when you guys do this, or it's so weird when this happens. Like, but they don't actually tell us what's happening. They don't actually address it. They all just like move on.
And even then, that's sort of weird where it's like, it could be mental. It could be him just saying, I hate when you guys make eyes for conversation. Like, there's not really any way for us to for sure know. There are some that I think maybe, but most that I think are just body language. Is the team that I'm on. Team body language. Never underestimate the importance of body language.
Thanks, Ursula.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I had kind of discounted this one. Like when I first read it, I was like, are they? No, I don't know. And so I didn't even highlight it. And then later when Aedion makes that comment, I had a note about it in here where he's like, that's never going to stop being strange or something like that because he notices them doing it. And so I wasn't sure. Yeah, like I feel like Sarah's just messing with us. So I don't know.
Well, and these aren't the only characters that I have italics notes for. There are other characters that it happens with. I just feel like it's all over the place. And maybe I'm just looking into things too much, but... Anyways, that leads me into the next note of like Rowan and Aedion like squaring off or whatever. I just always go back to from Crescent City where Bryce just calls all the men alpha holes. It's like, I was like, yes, I call people in real life that. Like, that's the one of all the like book insults to make, is when like men think they know better, and so they're just like squaring off and gonna go, I don't know how else to say it other than crude ways, and I'm trying to avoid that. So sure. And they're just alpha holes, and that was what was happening this whole time with Aedion, and then specifically now with Rowan, and then like squaring off together, whatever.
I remembered from this series specifically, I remember her saying territorial fey bastards a lot. So I'm sure
so
we're
that's
like,
the alpha holes of this book.
yes, that's the alpha
bastards.
holes
Got
of
it.
Throne of Glass.
TFBs.
Yeah, we're just TFBs.
That's right.
Gosh, hate those guys. TFB.
Into chapter 29.
29?
29?
29.
I missed out. 29.
There we go. Round it out. Rowan was, they were basically like checking each other out, him and Aelin, I think, here, and just kind of like noticing how handsome or how beautiful the other one is. But on Rowan's end, he kind of says, but he hadn't remembered just how stunning she was until she'd taken off her hood earlier, and it had struck him stupid. And that's because he in love. That's why he in love.
I wish he would just like let himself be in love.
I know.
right?
Ugh, man.
Such a rule follower.
I know. He should talk to Nesrin and just be like, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyways, this is also the moment when Rowan eventually tells her that Lorcan is here, and that's why he came, and that's like a big moment. And I had said in a previous episode that I had like seen a name that I've seen online, and I knew they were involved somehow, but I didn't really know, and that was Lorcan. So now I'm like, okay, so now he's in Rifthold, so maybe we get to know something about him. I've seen his name on the internet. I know he exists as a character, so
And
maybe
that he did something.
that he does something, but that's about all I know. So that will be very interesting to see. And then I just really love this analogy too, whenever he's talking to Aelin and just like having this back and forth and having a conversation. And it said another part of him, a part that had been knotted from the moment she left, uncoiled like a wild animal stretching out before a fire. And I just love that analogy because, you know, everything for her is fire and warmth. And so it was just like he came home and he was comfortable and he's just going to stretch out next to the fire. And I just loved that. So cute. And then they have this whole conversation about should he sleep in her bed or, you know, where should she go? And it's like, what are people going to think? And he said that she was off limits and he had to like limit himself and all the things. And I was like, no, there is no off limits, Rowan. Just do your thing, man. Like, just go get her. But it didn't happen.
Kiss the crap out of her.
Kiss the crap out of her. Anyway.
So this part, he says, if you're a monster, I'm a monster, he said with a grin broad enough to show off his elongated canines. She let out a rough laugh, close enough that it warmed his face. Just sleep in the bed. I don't feel like digging up bedding for the couch, she said. But as soon as I read, if you're a monster, I'm a monster, in my head, I said, if you're a bird, I'm a bird. And that just, I had to write that in there.
Same.
And Con said she almost did that too. It's
Yeah,
just,
he
like,
had it in the
perfect.
Kindle notes, and I was like, wait, did you write this or did I write this? Because I thought the same thing.
I love that we all thought the same thing.
Yeah. This whole nightgown scene, I was giggling and kicking my feet. Like, she walks out in the nightgown, and he's like, you forgot the bottom part. She's like, there is no bottom part. My favorite part was after like teasing him about issuing decrees or whatever. She said, so curious about my negligees, Prince. Whatever would the others say? Maybe you should issue a decree to clarify. Just like obsessed with how they roast each other back and forth all the time.
Well, and then she said, and if Lorcan comes to murder me in my sleep, I might as well look good. And he said, vain until the bitter end. I was just like, this conversation, this interaction, this is what I need more of in this book. I need
Yes.
more of it. It's so funny. It's so cute. Oh, I cannot wait for them to actually make out. It's going to happen. I know it. Anyways, just not yet.
Not in this section.
The burn is slow. So we are maybe when her magic gets out and then it just like burn all the time.
Literally.
But
This
probably
is
not
like
in the way I want. It's okay.
Slowest slow burn of all time.
Okay. I'll just buckle up and be ready for it. Okay. But going still with this like back and forth, and I just really loved how she said, is there a specific color you would like me to wear? If I'm going to scandalize you, at least I should do it in something you like. Then eventually he still tells her, he says, gold, not yellow, real metallic gold. She said, you're out of luck, she said into her pillow. I would never own anything so ostentatious. And then like later she has that big gold dress with the dragon on it. Just so cute. I love it. But I feel like that color, something's going to happen It's coming back. So I'm remembering the color gold, which is ironic for my real life
Gold
right
watch.
now.
Yeah.
Everything in my life right now is gold.
Over to not Dorian.
Yes, chapter 30, over to not Dorian. This is just him like being in the demon body or whatever. And it finally said the demon had taken control over the body completely, and he'd let him after the woman with familiar eyes had failed to kill him. And so we get like a little glimpse of what the demon taking over his body is doing and like torturing people and whatever. But it was just like this sentence specifically that stuck out of the entire little chapter. He's just given up at this point. So it's been like a slow progression, and now we're finally kind of not there. So that's
Womp
just
womp.
really sad.
Womp
Stop,
womp
Kyle.
indeed.
Stop.
That is deserving of a womp
Yeah,
womp.
I agree. I got you.
I feel like I'm like sad, and you're just like womp womp. Like it doesn't matter. Not that
No,
you're
it's
like,
a
oh,
womp womp.
womp
it's a
womp, Dorian.
heartfelt womp womp.
It's a
not
heartfelt
sarcastic
womp womp. Picture the orchestra playing all their songs of countries, and at the very end, all the trombones let out a heartfelt womp womp. That's the womp womp I'm giving Dorian right now.
Okay, moving on.
Moving on. Moving right into chapter 31, featuring Shadowfire, the Cruciatus Curse of Aurelia.
Nice one, Quan.
Thanks, Juan.
It's pretty good. But this is like Kaltain having like a little moment, because so far she's just kind of been sitting there, not really doing much. And she had like, I don't know, it kind of gave what Aelin can do with like holding fire over people, but like not hurting them. But she was doing that, but with like a shadowy, because it said it was like an all over unholy aura of dark fire burned. And so it kind of like was described the same, but it was like dark and demony, I guess. And then it said that she like finally talked too and said it was shadow fire. And she said, it's from me, in a voice that was dead and hollow and yet vicious. It has always been there, asleep, and now has been awoken, shaped anew. So I'm super freaked out. And then later I was thinking about this, and I was like, so is like Kaltain like a fire wielder? Like, are we seeing another one of those? Is Kaltain a shadow daddy? Is she controlling the shadows?
Shadow mommy.
Shadow Mommy.
Hey, like, what are we getting here out of Kaltain? I don't know. I'm equally intrigued and frightened. So
I do think
That's fair.
I have a little bit more on this a lot later about her, but I do find it weird that when she talks, it does seem like it's actually her. Like, it's not been a demon or whatever inside her talking. She says it's from her, not from some other source. It's her, it's been awoken, shaped anew, and that she's just so downplayed the rest of the time. Because I feel like everyone else who's been under control has been, like, under orders. As soon as they see something, it's happening. I don't know. I have suspicions about her.
interesting. All right. Kyle's on Kaltain watch. I was there in Throne of Glass. So now
I've been on
here we are.
Captain Watch since day one.
Kyle, calm down. Okay, so we're back to this is all I'm talking about tonight. We're back to the Italics, but these are with Manon and Elide. It said first when Manon was talking to Duke Parrington and like kind of like having this conversation with Kaltain at the same time, and then it said Italics. Careful, a voice said in her head. Proceed with cunning. And so I was like, where, like at first I was like, where is this voice? Like, what is this Italics? Like, I just like noted it. And then later in the chapter, this is when Abraxos is with Elide, and it said, he huffed as if to say, you wouldn't be much more than a mouthful. Like, to a conversation that she was saying like with him. And this one going with what Kyle said earlier with it saying like as if to say, but knowing that is it Keely was talking to Petra and like having mind conversations. So this later, whenever it was Italics again with Abraxos, that made me think that maybe the first one was Abraxos like aware of what Manon's conversation was and just kind of like trying to be helpful to her. I'm not saying maybe the second one is going with Kyle's whole because it says as if to say, but it led me to think the other one was for sure Abraxos and Manon maybe just hasn't picked up on it yet. Maybe there's two people just talking to each other's minds. Maybe Sarah J. Masters likes to hit the Italics option on her computer.
I love these slanted letters. They're so pretty.
But I'm on Italics watch.
I do think the Abraxos one is much more of like how you kind of said. He's an animal, basically. How we would say to like a pet. And even when she was like earlier on, Keely saying like, oh, they don't talk. And they're like, don't they? It'd be like the same thing if they were dog moms and they were walking about and they're like, they don't
Bless your
talk, do
soul.
they? And she'd be like, well, of course they do. I know what my little puppy wants, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I made a joke
Yeah.
with like her being like, oh, bless your heart, and like having that attitude, but I think they really do. But I don't know.
Well, because it's described as, or Abraxas is described as very dog-like in these chapters even, where it's like, oh,
Yeah.
he's wagging his tail and stuff like that. That's what I saw that one as. And I think, doesn't it even go into more of the cunning one in a later chapter, where she was thinking back to the voice in her head? Or am I mistaken?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay, I don't know.
Maybe.
Never mind.
We can go to the next one.
Oh, you're not going to say yours?
Well, we just talked about it.
Oh, I didn't even see it. I'm sorry. I
You can
that's
still
okay.
gush about how he's cute.
He is cute. Abraxas is so cute. He just a little puppy. He didn't do nothing wrong.
He's a big puppy.
He's a big puppy.
You're a big boy. Who's a big boy?
He's a very good boy.
Oh, that's so funny. Okay, so chapter 32. What am I reading?
It's Queen of Shadows.
Written by Sarah Janet Mass.
Okay, so guys, I tried really hard to take the quotes that I copy so that I know what I'm talking about, but cut out stuff so that it didn't look like I had a lot of notes, because that's usually what freaks you all out. But now I'm like, I see the ... So I know I cut out something, but what does that mean? Okay. I'm with it now. I know what I'm saying. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
So this is Manon telling Elide that she has to go under the castle and figure out what's going on. And she's like, I want you to go into that chamber. I want you to tell me what's happening there. You will find a way into that chamber. You will give me the details. You'll keep quiet about what you learn, and you will live. If you betray me, if you tell anyone, then we'll toast to you at your wedding party to a handsome Vogue husband, I suppose. I was like, okay, Manon. Like, pretty point blank there. But also, I mean, I guess like because Elide isn't one of the actual like black beaks. Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
I said Blackbeard, but that's a pirate.
She ain't black. Oh.
Oh no, Connor, stop. Anyways, okay, but I guess because Elide isn't like an actual Blackbeak, so she can go under the castle is the thought process here.
Well, because she's like a servant.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
She's non-threatening.
Yeah, like I think it was because if any of the Blackbeaks went down there, they'd be like, what are you doing here?
Yes.
But if Elide was down there, like Elide's a servant, she's supposed to be, you know, like
Around.
she could be a lot more inconspicuous. Yeah, and people don't really pay attention to her because she is around like cleaning or whatever. So that's how I interpreted that.
That's like her whole life. She brags about it. She plays the part of a loser so she can get anywhere.
Brags.
A loser, Elite.
I guess I forget that not everyone knows she's like claimed to be a Blackbeak or whatever, because I was just like, but she is one of them, so she's going under there. But I guess, yeah, that makes more sense. And I was just super excited for Elide's being a witch, and nobody else knows that. So
Later in this chapter, this whole interaction with Elide, she like comes across Vernon and Caltaine in the hallway or whatever. This whole interaction was literally making me sick to my stomach. Like I almost just put the book down and quit reading here because I couldn't handle it. But the fingerprint bruises on Caltaine's arm and just the hopeless surrender in her eyes. And then Vernon says to Elide, you two could be sisters. Like talking about Elide and Caltaine. And he just like says it casually. It seems like a throwaway line. But first of all, that's super disgusting considering what Elide just walked in on. Like he was trying to make a move on Caltaine, and so that's gross. But two, like what does that mean that they look that much alike? Like I don't know if does that mean something? Does that mean that Caltaine also has witch blood? Like obviously Caltaine had some kind of magic if they can use her for the shadow fire and possession and whatever else. But like I don't know. I just thought that was weird. I don't remember reading that before.
yeah, I guess I took it like that they acted the same. Not that they like maybe in the way that they both act like they're servants who don't say anything, and they just, that's how I guess I took
maybe.
it. But I guess
Okay.
sisters I don't act like my sisters, so I don't know why that's what I thought. But
Well, like physically, they are described similarly with having like really pale skin and dark hair, but we don't get. I don't know. I just thought that was weird.
yeah, I also
Maybe-
marked
maybe
it
that is
though,
how
and
he
I was
meant it.
like, it's too like offhanded not to be something important, but then is it like supposed to be that I'm not supposed to think it's important because it was a small line? Like it's one of those like fantasy moments. Am I thinking too much? Am I not thinking enough? So yeah, I'm totally there with you. But she does get Kaltain away, which shout out to her for like trying to be a hero for Kaltain in that moment. But then it said Vernon smiled. I was wondering when you'd show your fangs, Elide, or should I say your iron teeth? He knew the whole time that she had like iron teeth blood. She like speculated that's why he like kept her in the tower and locked her up and all the things, but now it's like she knows. And that's also terrifying because the whole like last chapter, like first half of this book, we were speculating, why did he bring her here? Does he have a plan for her? Was she trying to hide the fact that she was an iron teeth so that he didn't try to have her reproduce with a Vogue or whatever? And so now it's like now he knows and we know he knows, and so now it makes me nervous that he's going to do something, and I'm stressed out for Elide. So I don't know. Vernon is the worst.
That
is he the new Arobynn? Ew.
Kind of.
I don't know if you can admit, it depends on what else he's done, because Arobynn had a long list of things that he's done.
Yeah, but like with underage pretty
for sure.
girls, and
I mean he's got that tick checked for sure.
I don't know. Okay, in chapter 33, I just had a quick note because I felt like on my first read through the whole series, I was so confused by this the whole time. There's a line that says that he, Aedion, was half fae and that he might not know for another decade how he would age if he would outlast his queen. And I just was like so confused on my first read because like Aedion and Aelin both have no idea if they have immortal lifespans or not. Like everybody just talks to Aelin like she's mortal, but I'm like, but she's also like half fae, right?
Is she
at
half
least
fae?
She's at least half fae. I think it said there was little to no magic in her father's bloodline or something. Both of her parents weren't fully fae. There was some kind of discrepancy there, and I think maybe that's why her like quote unquote animal form is a human form.
I thought because her mom also wasn't fully fae, so that would make her
or maybe that's what
fae.
It is.
Isn't that how it works? If she's half, then she's a quarter or something. I don't know.
So I don't, but like we don't know. And so anyway, I just had to like call attention to that they like have no way of knowing until they just age, and then they see if they age normally or not.
That's also one of the biggest issues I have with any interaction between them, is because like everything that she and Kale does that's kind of immature, sure. The other guys, like Rowan, has had a long time to figure his crap out. And if you are immortal and have not figured out what you want out of life at 300, that's on you. That's like other fantasy books are like, well, elves live 1,000 years, so they don't really reach maturity for 200 years. That doesn't make sense. You're still alive for 200 years. What are you not learning? You're like the age of a toddler at 200? Get over yourself. I don't know. The miniature rant there about the age discrepancy.
That's fair. Well, Aedion actually is a couple years older than Aelin, right? Yeah.
Isn't he 22, something like that?
He actually is young. Yeah.
A bit more excusable, yeah.
Sure. But yeah, in general, I agree.
Absolutely. So I'm just putting out this next note to be like that later. I was right. That's all this note is for, is that I called something was happening, not specifically what, but this is when Lysandra comes in and it said they all whirred weapons up. As Lysandra closed the rolling door behind her, boxes and bags in her arms, she had an uncanny way of sneaking into places unnoticed. And so I highlighted that like something different is happening with Lysandra here. I don't know what it is. I don't know if I thought like she maybe had some sort of magic that like, helped her be sneaky or something like that. And so they would end up using it later. That's like as far as I thought it was going to go. But she obviously has like a big epic reveal in a later chapter. That is so cool, by the way. And we'll get there when we get there.
I honestly, when that happened, I thought something, but it was just like, oh, she's probably just good at sneaking out of houses after she's done the deed with people. And like,
Ew.
Done the deed. That was part of her rigorous training for 17 years.
Yeah, sneaking out.
Honestly, though, would it not be like sneaking in and out of rooms that like you're no longer, as horrible as it is, she's no longer wanted there, and probably they don't want her to be seen by other people to know that like you've obtained the services of a whore. You can't have that on your reputation.
It's the professional walk of shame.
Yes, professional walk of shame. I'm sure she's elegance, she's grace.
Oh, that's
It's like
funny.
Danny DeVito's character on Always Sunny. Hooer. The hooer.
My God. Okay, so my next note is literally just that Kale is an idiot. And this is when he meets Rowan for the first time. And it just said, a handsome Fae prince whom she spent months living and training with while Kale's own life fell apart while people died because of her actions.
Don't even get me
And it's
started.
like,
Come off it, you ninny.
Just picture her walking in. Oh God, he's hot.
it really is like just like a self-conscious whatever. But I feel like in the first episode of this book, you all got to bash Kale, and I'm finally there. So give me my one note about Kale being dumb.
This is my moment.
I'm all for bashing him, for everyone bashing him. There's like 1/10 of me that wants to say like, I understand what he's going through, but he is reacting the worst way possible.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Part of me is like, if he felt that way for like a minute and we had a conversation or something and it was resolved and we moved on, I would give him that. This is just like, okay, like everyone else has moved on.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I think it's just because we get his POV. Because, like, this was his POV. It's not like he said this out loud and everyone has their insecurities. It's just like
But a
his
lot of the
is
time
just
he does.
so forward and up front. Yeah. But luckily, this is, I believe, this is the last time Kale's in the book. Like, I'm pretty sure he's mentioned, like, he helps Lysandra out with the whole Arobynn thing. Maybe he's in another chapter, but I'm pretty sure at some point he's just like, is just mentioned and on the side. And I had a note by that at the end of this whole chapter chunk, like, I'm honestly glad Kale wasn't around. Like,
Right, yeah.
we needed a break.
Yeah, you stay on the roof, buddy. Figure your life out.
Exactly.
Chapter 34, my only note, and I even wrote, like, I'm sure Lauren will have plenty to say about this one, but I just could not stop gushing about Rowan getting all teary-eyed over Aelin playing the piano in the old theater. And, like, John said something earlier about how she even taught him how to play, and that whole sequence was so sweet. And I love that she got to take him to this place that's so special to her, and they got to have that moment.
Usually when I'm taking notes, I am like copying full quotes and everything. But like for this little chapter, I literally had nothing. Like you said in the notes, like, I'm sure Lauren will have a ton of notes about this. And I was like, I have no notes. I think I was just so in the moment, which hasn't happened really for me a ton of times in this book. So that was kind of nice. And I think that's why I ended up crying after this moment, because I was just like so invested. That's just like her taking him to the theater and explaining like some of her like being young and hiding up there in the rafters, and just like her love for the theater and the music of it all, and then going on stage, and then the fact that all the musicians who had died, like the stage was still set up like that concert had happened, even though it's been however many weeks or months since that happened, which is also, first of all, really sad for like art and music and everything else, but also just like shows how much of a hit that took on the community, that nobody would even come in, and it was almost like sacred ground type of a place. And so that whole description, then when she starts playing music, and I know that I was reading a book, but the way Sarah described how the music built and where it was going and what she felt in the moment, and just like I felt like I was with her, or I was there, and it was just so good. And then when she whispers like now or something to Rowan, and it's just like when it gets epic, that's when I started crying. So then when he shows up and then he's crying and then I'm crying more, and it was just like a whole moment. I just completely lost it. I cried like a lot, and then I texted Connor that I cried, and I said I cried at the book, by the way. I know I cry about a lot of other things too, just to clarify, but it was just really good. So that's my cry count
So
for this
sweet.
chapter chunk. But leaving the theater and stuff, they like run away because somebody hears the music and starts coming in. And so they run away. And it said that they had passed a flock of beautifully dressed young women. They passed by on a sunny avenue beyond the alley and gaped at the hooded, powerful built male who stormed past. And then all turned around to admire the view from behind. And then Aelin flashed her teeth at them. And I was like, I mean, same, ladies. I would do the same.
So funny.
Because they can't even see his face. He's literally just in a hood. But man's got the body, so.
Love to watch him leave.
So good.
Oh my gosh. Chapter 35. I'm here for Nezrin. I'm like, she's just speaking to me right now. I love her telling off Kale in this chapter, where she says, friends don't spend time with each other only when they're feeling sorry for themselves or bite each other's heads off for asking difficult questions. And then later she says, I'm fine with distracting each other for whatever reason, Kale, but at least be honest about it. Go off, girl. Thank you. He needs to hear this stuff from somebody,
Yeah.
and I love that she's the one that's just like telling him how it is.
Oh, and I love that she just like showed up in this book and is just like my new favorite character.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nezrin. Yes, Nezrin, do that.
Yes.
Yes, say that again. Love her.
I also feel like because like Kale, his first time even seeing death was when he killed Cain. So I understand maybe how her learning that back then Selena was such a killer would have been a shock to his system. And he's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you killed people. I can't believe you killed Archer. But now he's killing people. He's lost the right to think that killing people is gross and disgusting. Like, you are also killing people. So you can't go over to someone like, don't do that. It's not a do as I say, not as I do situation. You're doing the same thing.
Well, and especially with that, it's with the whole Dorian thing for me, because he's killing these like Vogue demons or the people at the ring, and he's like justifying that that's okay, but then like super mean, awful, terrible to Aelin, who's saying we should do that to Dorian. And I get that you know Dorian and you didn't know these other guys, but like, are you saying they are inside if he is? And yeah, that whole Kale, I don't know.
Kale.
That's all I got. Kale. But I do love that it said like he had killed 4, but Nezrin had taken down 7. And I just love that he's just like some average, like, we got these like epic fae males who are the best in the world, and like, Aedion, who's like up and coming and half fae, and then there's Kale.
Just Kale.
It's just Kale.
I love it. And I love that Nezrin is even better than him, at least in that moment. And it's just all of it. I think I did say in the last time we saw Kale, I'm more than sure this is now the last time we see him for this little chunk of chapters. And he is just like on the roof across the street, or he like helps Lysandra on the night with Arobynn and like that kind of a thing. So at the end of this, Aelin, she's been like sneaking out. So like she keeps going in her room and she keeps like grabbing random things and leaving her stuff and whatever. But then this one comment of all the times, I was really thrown off because it said neither male, I believe that would be Rowan or Aedion, neither male had commented that she plucked Damaris from the dining table, claiming she wanted to clean it. But I'm like, did I miss the moment that Kale brought that over? I guess it just happened, and we're just supposed to like accept that that's a thing.
Yeah, I don't remember that moment off the top of my head either.
Guess I missed that too. I'll do a quick search.
I mean, it's fine, I guess, if that's when it is. It just felt like for it to have its own little chapter at the end of Airfire, for him to like dramatically drop his eagle sword and keep Damaris, and then for it to just be like, oh yeah, just sitting there on the table like NBC. Like, I don't know.
That's the first time Damaris is mentioned in this book, at least by name.
Okay.
Weird. I wonder if he just like left it in the apartment or something.
Because even earlier, we get the whole back and forth with, like, you take the Eye of Elena and here's your ring back and whatever. But, like, he doesn't give her Damaris. So, I don't know. The awkward breakup where you, like, bring over their stuff in a box. Awkward.
Did he do it when... Because he gave her the books, right?
Yeah, he did give her the books.
Did he give that to her then? Was that even in this book, or was that the previous?
It'd have to be this one, because
it'd have to be this one. Never mind, yeah. It's all a blur.
Yeah, I don't know. I was trying to look, but then the only other way I could think to find it is to search for the word sword, but that's in here 104 times in the whole book.
Yeah. Because then, like, later, like, Rowan even has it. Damaris and Goldrin on his back, and she does too, and, like, whatever. So it's just like, this is just the first time it just casually appears. So, I mean, it's fine. I'm okay with that. I just didn't know if I missed something. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. They might have mentioned it in passing at some point, but chapter 36, quick note. This is another scene I would love to see on screen. There's a line where Aelin is luring Lorcan into the sewers, and it says, twisting her voice just as Lysandra had showed her, she replied in a male tenor, "You brought it with you?" And I just want to see the scene where Lysandra teaches Aelin how to talk like a dude. I just thought that was so funny.
That one, and the like a montage with when she teaches her how to like saunter in like a drunken male or whatever she does when she saves Aedion. Like Lysandra's coming in clutch. She's bringing clothes. She has the jeweler. She's like she's killing it on the side.
That montage would be good.
It would be so good.
I'd love to see it if it was like one of those comedies where she finally gets the male voice so right that Lysandra's just like, oh.
My work here is done.
Say it again.
That's funny. Well, and then after Lorcan falls for the trap, and then she's just like, It said, Aelin merely sauntered down the street whistling to herself. I just love that idea that she's doing this and she's all secret and whatever. And then she's like, yep, I did it. Like, sucks to be you kind of a vibe. And then whenever he like finally catches her and it says, I'm going to kill you. And she said, about that. She shifted her wrist. A blade she had flicked free was now resting against his groin. And she said, immortality seems like a long, long time to go without your favorite body part. And I was like, oh, Aelin, spicy, calm down. Something that I feel that is important that Lorcan just kind of threw out there that might come back later is when it said Lorcan had laughed. You think you beat Maeve. She allowed you to walk out of Dornell, both of you. Aelin yawned. Honestly, Rowan, I don't know how you put up with him for so many centuries. 5 minutes and I'm bored to tears. She's so funny in this book. Like,
I know.
This is the energy I needed from her in all the books, but she was like going through so much. Post Mistword therapy, Aelin is hilarious. Love her. But I am a little nervous about Maeve because it was one of those like, okay, well, they did it and now we're moving on to somewhere else. But it's kind of like brought her back as like a mini bad guy side character to just like keep an eye on. So.
Yeah, especially since Lorcan is there and he's still bloodsworn to her. But yes, with Aelin's little comments and stuff, and this whole chapter was so funny when she's just talking to Rowan afterward and they're like debriefing about her little scuffle with Lorcan. And she says, at least I said it would be a big mistake. I was tempted to say little.
Yeah, and then I think Rowan replies and says, then he really would have killed you, or like then he really would have been in for it or something like that. Yeah.
Okay, so chapter 37, I just wanted to put it out there that this is a Dorian chapter, and none of us had notes for it, myself included. But I do just want to put it out there that we care about Dorian and we're not forgetting about him. He is going through a lot. Pour one out for our friend Dorian. I do hope, like, if he comes out of this alive, that he won't remember anything because, like, what is described in his chapters are, like, a lot. And, and we're only getting, like, a tiny glimpse of probably all the stuff he's seeing. So I really hope that he doesn't remember anything if he comes out of this, or that there's someone who can just give him, like, a lot of therapy after this because he's really going
speed
through
run
it.
Therapy.
Yeah, his own Rowan.
Hi, you're gonna be king, but first
we've got 2 hours to get that messed up mind right. Let's go.
Court ordered therapy.
He needs to he needs to find a way over to the mental health retreat.
Yes. In this book, it is Mistword. Mistword, the mental health retreat.
Yep.
Chapter 38. This also made me laugh out loud when Lysandra's in the room and Aedion walks in and it says Lysandra kissed the air between them. Hello, General. Good to see you're looking well. A little mental image of her like kissing the air at him. Yeah. I just love it.
Yeah, and then she's talking to Rowan and she says, I like your fangs, she said sweetly. Rowan says, are you studying them so you can replicate them when you take my form, shapeshifter? And what's funny about this too is there's this specific one, but I think there's even 1 or 2 more mentions. But from the last chapter section, there's something that Lysandra says to Aelin when she says, you and I are nothing but beasts wearing human skins. So it like takes on another new meaning of like what she was inferring. But like I said, I think there are even like 1 or 2 more little things that she says like that.
Yeah.
That you can look back and be like, oh, that sneaky little devil, and using her words, Sarah dropping us little hints.
John and I were fangirling over those.
There's another one that we can't talk about, but we'll talk about it
when you can.
Oh yeah, I saw your note about that.
Well, and I just love that. I feel like Lysandra, I don't want to sound rude, but Lysandra like matters now. Like she was just kind of like there and like whatever. But now I feel like, oh, she's gonna be part of the team and she's gonna be doing stuff. And like obviously I just called her out, like she's being so helpful and like doing so many things already.
I mean, seriously.
But I'm excited that she's like one of the group.
I liked the reveal of her being a shapeshifter. I will say I'm tentative about a pattern of every character we're meeting having some secret ability, past or power, because I like So, like, right now, for instance, Kale would be the main one. If he turns his attitude around and joins the team, it is so much more impressive to me over a Queen of Fire, an ancient Fey warrior, a shapeshifter. It is so powerful for a nobody human who can't do those things to still put their all into a fight. And I like, great, they can all do amazing things, but I like the idea of a normie helping out, like just doing their best, doing what they can, even if it's something small that greatly affects the team. So that's kind of why I do hope Kale turns around and rejoins, because right now he is just a guy. He's just Kale. But he can do what he can.
He's just a dude. But I had said in some other episode that I was excited when one of the towers came down, and then all of a sudden this person has this kind of power and somebody else has that, and they had no idea that they had it, or they've been hiding it the whole time right under our nose, that kind of a thing, like Lysandra. And so this is like a little glimpse into that, because there probably is a lot of people who have some sort of magic.
Sure.
Obviously, they're all getting turned into these demons or going missing or whatever. But yes, I'm more than sure Kale's just normal, since he can like sneak into the Vogue camps and they don't even look at him, and like all the stuff that it says like that. But I am excited for everyone to get a cool magic power.
So am I. I just want one normal person is all I'm saying.
There are still some normies too. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Well, you got Kale, so you can hang out with him.
He's got to improve his attitude, but he's welcome to the team if he does.
Right now he's a stormy normie, but
Stormy Normie.
it's a little stressy, depressy right now.
Yes, he is. Okay, so I'm gonna flip these two notes, and I'm gonna talk my bottom one first. This is like going with Lysandra and her like shape-shifting stuff. I was like telling her story and like her backstory, which I loved to hear, because it really was like Lysandra just like joined the group and everyone's like cool with her, even though for years we hated her. And so I was like glad to like get to know her more and actually care about her a little bit. And it had said, and then I learned to make myself prettier. I made myself beautiful. When I begged for money, it became far faster. I was wearing one of those beautiful faces the day magic fell, and I've been stuck in it ever since. And so Aelin said, like, so this face isn't your real face, your real body? And she just said, no. So that is really interesting and sad that she's like lost whoever she actually is, because she had talked about how you have to like remember what you look like to even get back there, and she's like lost that memory. But also I'm even thinking back to like other times when it talked about her where it was like she was like abnormally beautiful and like her face was like so symmetrical. Oh, okay, well she made herself look that way, that makes sense. So that was like a really interesting thought. And then this is, I texted Connor, I was like, am I like stretching things, or and my theories are just super unhinged, or maybe this is actually important. She said to put it in the podcast. So here we are talking about my super unhinged theories. I have like two references maybe to go off of for where I'm feeling this vibe. That the first one was when like Lysandra was taking care of Aedion right after he got captured, and she looked back at him and thought about kissing him and had like this moment, that in a conversation with Aelin. And then the other one is literally just the one that Connor was talking about, where she like kissed the air between her and Aedion and is like, hello general, it's good to see you, or whatever. And it's just like, it feels like flirty banter. I don't know, I think I'm shipping them. I know it's like really early days but that's where I'm
early
at.
day.
I know, that's what I was gonna say. I even put in my notes like, maybe I watch too much reality dating television shows, and it's just a bunch of hot single people hanging around the kitchen table, and so I'm just trying to put people together, and I'm using that lingo. But I think that's where I am. But to take it even one more unhinged step further, this is when they're talking about her being a shapeshifter. And Rowan says something about like he could like smell it on her. And then Aedion murmured to himself, so that's what it is. And I was like, so she smells different to him, but we were saying it's shape-shifting, but like, could it be that they're mates and he's smelling it on her or something? Is this super random thought that makes no sense, or am I onto something? I don't know, but I at least hope they get together, so I'm shipping them right now.
I don't think it's super unhinged. I interpreted it as like Aedion's a lot younger than Rowan is, and like because magic has been gone for so long, he probably hasn't met anyone who he knew was a shapeshifter and could identify the scent. I feel like he could tell something was different, but he couldn't quite place it. Like that was how I interpreted it. And then so obviously Rowan saying like he'd met a few shapeshifters before and it's a rare gift or whatever. And then he's like, oh, but it does. I Yeah, I could see that.
Just
too.
like
I don't think
with
that's
my
super
experience
Yeah.
with with fae males is when a female
Yeah.
smells different. All my experience with fae males, when they smell a female different, it's usually that they're mates. So that was why I thought that maybe, and especially because he kind of murmured it on the side, like he's trying to figure out what's happening, and he's trying to connect to himself, and I don't know. So I'm just gonna hold on
Cute.
to that one and see what happens.
Lauren's just holding on.
I know. I want someone
She's
to
just
start
waiting
making
for
out.
somebody to make out.
And maybe they'll end up being with totally opposite people and I will hate them together. But for right now, in the early days of
Of book 5.
they're new characters-ish.
They are,
Kind
yeah.
of. And this is new to Rifthold Love Island. They all just got there
True,
together.
yes.
And they're all hot and single. So anyways.
I will say one last note on Lysandra, because I just thought of it. She was exceedingly lucky to be in that body when magic fell, because she says in this chapter that she loved being, she was partially joking about the fangs. She's like, oh, I preferred being animals with fangs. Like, you could have been like a raccoon for however many years you were.
10 years.
So,
Well, and she said she was a rat and she was a
Yeah.
cat and she was all the
Yeah.
things. So
well, which is another thing. He said earlier, there are probably people in this triangle of no magic who were fae shifted into animals who are stuck that way. So when magic falls, I'm sure a lot of people, someone's pet puppy is gonna be like, whoa, I'm a man.
good thing they keep their clothes when they shift back.
So true.
So a naked dude in your living room.
Gonna have a real Peter Pettigrew moment.
He just instantly decides to turn back into a dog. I like this life, actually. Pampered, fed, it's fine.
Continue. Switches back.
Well, we already touched on this, but if anybody's looking this up for reference, this is chapter 38. I think it's at the end of the chapter where Rowan and Aelin seem to be speaking mind to mind, and Aedion just is looking at them and he's like, that will never stop being strange. And so we weren't sure if he was noticing just that they were looking at each other weird, or if he knows they're speaking like that, or if he can hear it too. I don't know what's happening here, but that's where this is that we were referencing earlier in the section.
Well, it just makes me mad that they don't address it. It's just oh, this is strange. New chapter. And I'm like, no, go back and tell me more about that. But
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
Sarah, I'll wait.
Chapter 39, I was dying at this, and I feel like this is something John would do because I've seen him do similar things in real life, but obviously in a very different scenario.
I was going to
He
say.
did this in real life. That's sick.
Literally.
Awesome, dude.
No, this is not it.
When Aelin and Rowan are down, I think they're down in the sewers, they're checking out the Wordhound remains after she leads Lorcan down there, and he slays them all. I didn't mean for that to sound like a good thing. Slay Lorcan. It says she strode to Rowan, taking the heavy arm from him, and waved at the prince with the creature's stiff fingers. Stop that, he hissed. She wriggled the demon's fingers a bit more. It'd make a good back scratcher. I was just dying because this is I just 100% could see John doing something like this. If we're ever in the sewers checking out Wordhound corpses.
That Lorcan left behind. Exactly, John.
As one does.
This just goes back to my Aelin in this book is just somebody different, completely different.
Yes.
And she's hilarious, and I'm loving every minute. But then it's having another one of those moments where she comes back super late at night and she's just completely exhausted, and she switches into his shirt, he noticed, with no small amount of male satisfaction. It was enormous on her. It was easy to forget how much smaller she was than him, how mortal, how utterly unaware of the control he had to exercise every day, every hour, to keep her at arm's length, to keep from touching her. And I was like, stop being in control, Rowan. Nobody cares. Just do it. Go crazy. Live your best life. Kiss the crap out of her.
Oh my gosh.
Freaking Rowan. Anyway.
Freaking Rowan. Okay, but also, I love Rowan so much for this next part in chapter 39. This is when they go to Sam's grave, and I keep calling her Selena, and Aelin asks Rowan to come with her. We find out that Wesley, once again, is the real MVP for somehow knowing in the short amount of time between Sam being killed and Wesley being killed, Wesley sent a letter about marking Sam's grave to the grave marking guy.
Marker guy.
But the forethought to do that, knowing, I'm sure Wesley knew that he was about to die. And so I don't know if he made a little checklist before Sam was killed. I don't know, but like the fact that he thought to do all of these things is so wild to me. So I didn't cry in this chapter, but I got really close when Aelin is like finally saying all of these things to Sam at his grave and how he would have been a wonderful king and that she really did love him because she's like acknowledging that she never got to tell him that when he was alive. Even her line where she says, "You could have been my mate and I never got the chance to know." This like made me tear up a little bit as I was typing it. But then even more than that was Rowan. She was like about to try and explain and he just says, "I know who he was to you." He doesn't ask her any questions or make her relive any of that. Then he goes and gets his own stone to lay on Sam's grave. And that almost got me. I love that so much. And I love his respect for their relationship and not asking questions and just recognizing that Sam meant so much to her and played such a key role in her life.
Yeah.
Him setting the pebble on Sam's grave is like, it was just like the most respectful thanks and tribute to Sam that he could have done because, like he said, he knew who Sam was to her and like how much he meant.
Well, and it's so different from other like typical book relationships is that they've both had their epic love. Like they've both had this endgame relationship and then both lost it way too early. And so now it's like they've come together and they are finding that healing together. And even though she's so young, it's just like a really beautiful new type of relationship to get to read and like experience through books. I really love it. And I love that he is so respectful of her relationship and she is so of his, and they can like take care of each other because they kind of know what each other is feeling as well. It's just really, really cute and beautiful. So
it also made me wonder if he, like, I know he was giving her space to like go to Sam's grave, but I'm wondering if he could hear everything that she said. I would imagine that hearing her say like, "You might have been my mate," obviously would have hit home with him like really hard. He literally would know like who Sam was to her in that respect, if it was that serious or if that's how she truly felt about him.
Yeah. I hate these chapter switchovers, but chapter 40 sorry to like flip the whole podcast here, but we get into chapter 40. Elide is on her way to try to like figure out how to get to wherever the demons are, like beneath the mountain or castle or wherever it's at. And it just said Elide's bowels had turned to water by the time she reached the guards. And I was like, why, Sarah? Why did you use this phrase
with the watery
again?
bowels.
I know.
She loves them watery bowels.
Gross. She says it in every book.
I've heard. This is one thing I've heard about her.
Yeah, she needs to figure out a new phrase. She needs to say something else.
It's effective though. It's some powerful imagery.
Yeah, it's just gross, but it is powerful.
So earlier when Elide asked Manon for poison, it was after her interaction with Kaltain and Vernon in the hallway. And I thought that she was going to offer the poison or like give it to Kaltain as some kind of mercy after seeing that interaction between her and Vernon, because it seemed like she had completely given up and she was seeing like the way that they were using her. And so that's where I thought that was going to go. And so then I just thought it was interesting that obviously she had a different plan for it, using it for the laundress so that she could get down and into the chambers or whatever and spy for Manon. But that was just my quick little note about that.
For me, this book, I feel like I just am one or the other. I'm either like hardcore swooning and everyone's in a relationship and I love it so much, or I'm in like a freaky horror movie. What the F is happening? And I'm actually scared. Like the time when like Dorian like just smiles at them all creepy and stuff. And then we get to like hear, and it was Elide telling her about like what she saw when she was down there and stuff. And it was like, "Tell me about the witchlings." And she's like, "They're not witchlings. They're not babies." Elide spat, covering her face with her hands as if to rip out her eyes. "They are creatures. They are demons. Their skin is like black diamond. And they have these snouts with teeth, fangs. Already they have fangs, and not like yours." She lowered her hands. "They have teeth of black stone. There is nothing of you in them." I am terrified. I'm just imagining like toddler demon babies with like these creepy teeth. I am scared, and I don't want to read anymore.
I know. I honestly had a lot of highlights from this chapter, but I was like, this gives me the heebie-jeebies. I don't even want to put them in here. We don't have to talk about it.
So I thought it was very interesting in this interaction.
It's at the end of the chapter, I think.
It's yes. It's her conversation with Manon. She's like telling a little bit of her story, right? Elide is.
I think so, yeah.
See, this is why I just put the whole book in there. All the notes.
It's been like 2 pages. I forget exactly what Elide is talking about, but their whole interaction, it seems like Elide, because they talk about her having like witch blood, and we know from her kind of talking about her time being raised by Fionnuala, that Fionnuala made sure to raise her being able to just like recognize very specific things and like notice everything. But in this specific interaction, it makes me think that she has some kind of supernatural gift of observance or cunning or something like that. It's something I picked up on this read that I didn't the first time. That was super interesting to me. And then I thought it was cool that the end of this chapter, when Manon says, she asks Elide, do you believe monsters are born or made? And I love that that is like a double reference to what she heard Elide just referencing with the babies or the witchlings, but also to herself referencing what the Croken witch said when she killed her about feeling sorry for them because they were made. And I just like loved that little interaction in there. And then Elide goes on and responds to her and says, I'm not the one who needs to answer that question. And it was just like, ooh, man. It was just like so good, because even with Astrid's reaction, you're starting to see little by little. I've joked that they clearly have feelings and emotions, but we're starting to see that slip a little bit more in more obvious ways. And it's interesting that you're seeing some of her 13, a little more specifically Astrid, you're starting to see them slip faster. And I almost, because it's like happening faster for them, and because Manon is the wing leader, it's going to take her longer to kind of make that flip. But if she does make that flip, it's going to be like way dramatic. It's going to be like way more dramatic and like way stronger than any of the 13 do. So it'll be interesting.
Kind of back to your first point about Elide's supernatural gift, because I think something very similar of her, like more on the cunning side of it. Wasn't it in one of the bonus chapters where they were having that dinner? They sort of described everyone's abilities, and one of them was something to the effect of understanding all written languages or something like that. Someone at the table had the ability to understand languages or something. I thought, maybe I'm mistaken.
Maybe.
I've read a lot of fantasy lately.
Yeah.
There's a lot of abilities in all of them. But yeah, just like, because she's even mentioned, I guess, in this book, how she is able to get places and like make people believe that she's unimportant.
Yeah, exactly.
And I feel like maybe that is an ability in and of itself, is just making herself seem unimportant, or at least making people think what she wants them to think about her or other things. But yeah, I saw your note. I was like, oh yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, that was part of our conversation. John and I talked about this a lot the other night, and I think one of the words that you had initially used was like manipulation, but not necessarily in a bad way or like a physical way, but just like
just mental.
Yeah, being able to manipulate, like you said, the way that other people view her, or not necessarily mind control, but like having it like influence, I guess.
I think up to this point, maybe she's thought that it was from what Fionnuala taught her. But now that we know she has witch blood, it's almost like, does that enhance it? Or basically, has that been enhancing it like her whole life, since she's now figured out that she's got witch blood? You know what I mean?
And maybe Fionnuala knew, since Vernon knew.
Yeah, that's true. Yep.
Yeah.
Anywho.
I don't know. I just noted, and John talked about this a little bit, just that Astrid clearly has a lot of feelings, not just about in this moment, but we see it a little bit like when she's riding her wyvern and has her arms out and she's just enjoying life and she's laughing and having fun. And then here, where she's like very strong feelings about what's going on, very clearly a big crack in this whole no feelings, whatever that the witches have. But it makes me nervous that she's going to do something dumb. Like, nobody else is acting, so I have to, and she's going to go and do something early and get herself killed or something, and it makes me nervous for her. So, yeah.
I don't think this was my comment.
Maybe it wasn't.
I don't think it wasn't. I didn't write those. So
I feel like you would, though.
Over to you, Quan.
You can still say it.
She wore the dragon dress, slay queen. Literally slay.
You crushed it. This whole like Arobynn oil thing though is extremely creepy.
Arobynn oil.
That's what it is. It's an Arobynn scented oil.
The oil.
It's almond scented oil.
The oil.
Almond oil by Arobynn.
Yeah, but I thought it was
Nice.
like because it was like his scent. Like she says that. I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
write the whole quote, but like I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
Signature
Yeah.
scent, yeah.
His signature, yeah.
No. Anyways, that's literally the only note I have for this chapter. Like that's all we have for 41 is that she wore this epic dress and that this Arobynn oil is extremely weird and creepy that he sent it.
I just want to say, oh, well, you know what? I'll say it after your next one. Since
You can take
mentioned
my
Rowan.
note if you want. Oh,
No, it's okay.
okay. Yes, but chapter 42, I'm so dead at Rowan thanking Arobynn for the almond oil. He literally
great.
says, "Thank you for the oil. My skin was a little dry."
I laughed out loud. Like
Yes.
actually laughed out loud.
I think this is my favorite thing that Rowan has ever done. And the way that she describes this interaction where like it takes a minute for that to sink in, like what he just said to Arobynn and Aelin, like he didn't even tell her. Like she notices the almond smell like before that moment, but she's like, "Oh, I thought it was just coming from me." And he says he never specified that only you had to wear it.
Just to be clear, all of that conversation happens in italics. So
Oh,
just saying.
Italic watch. I really hope, and I think he did. I hope he rubbed it on his you-know-whats.
Oh my god.
I think that's really funny. But
Ew. I hope he
pits?
didn't. That feels gross.
I hope I assume he rubbed it like all over his body.
You got to fight fire with fire. This is
Yeah.
a power play for a power play.
Power play for a power player. You know what I mean? I like to think that
Ow.
he did, you know.
Honestly, same. I feel like it's like
I'm going to go with a no on that one.
this was like the best way that I feel like anybody could have combated Arobynn's like disgusting, creepy request.
That's fair. But Arobynn is still just as jealous and awful and terrible as he was with Sam like years ago for now. And like I know that this whole evening, now I know, but like going into when I was writing these notes, like now I know that like this whole evening was really just her basically giving him like a second chance to see like, have you actually changed? Because Lysandra has changed, I have changed, and we talked about that in the last episode. Like, do we actually think Arobynn has changed? And I really do love that she kind of gave him that chance as much as he didn't super deserve it, but she's done a lot of things that she doesn't super deserve a second chance
Right.
too. So like I get where she's going from, but we see a lot here that he hasn't, and he literally is the same. It was like her and Rowan having this whole italics conversation that was way more than just looks and as if to says, to put that out there. Like this is, they are talking in mind to mind. You cannot convince me otherwise. And it said, despite herself, despite what was to come, a smile tugged on her lips as Rowan took her hand and gripped it tightly. When she turned to head to the dungeons, her smile faded as she found Arobynn watching. And I was just like, oh crap, it's going to happen again. With like how she was with Sam, and he's gonna get all jealous. And then it's not until way later when Lysandra is in the room with Arobynn and like that whole scene happens that she even said, Lysandra says like, then the worst of it had been requested by Arobynn, requested as punishment for Sam's loving her, a punishment for tampering with Arobynn's belongings. So that is said. But later she says something that like Arobynn had already made plans to kill Rowan or whatever, like before he even
Yeah.
went to bed that night, that already happened. And so it's just one of those like that it's his belongings that people are tampering with what he owns. And it's like, dude, you haven't even seen her in however long. And he's just the literal worst.
Well, speaking of like him being the worst and him taking her into that room, total like douchebag move.
Yeah.
Of it being the same exact room she saw Sam's dead body in. Like he brought her into that room specifically to do all that. Just everything he does is awful, and he deserves everything he had coming.
Yeah.
And more.
Ooh.
Is this creature's name Stevan? Is that what you said?
Stevan.
Stevan. I wrote Steven here, but I now know that that's wrong. Stevan. Okay. Just want to make sure
You
I'm
can go by
ready to
Steve.
go. Steve. Stev. Okay, so I know now again that this fog that they like interrogate was telling mostly like all lies as far as we know, that he was making this up so that Arobynn would think that the ring on his left hand was the one that was the wrong one, even though it was technically on the other hand that was missing. But it makes me wonder, like, was he telling some truths or was he telling all lies? And this just kind of goes with Kyle's whole theory of that the king is actually a Vogue prince or something worse that's taken over its body, because it said, like, you know, how does he control you? How does the king control you all? And he said, like, he has a ring too. He uses it to control us all. The ring goes on and it doesn't come off. We do what he says, whatever he says. And so it's like, so does his ring, he just uses it to control them? He designed them that way because he made them? Or was everything this guy said a lie and I'm just taking this and trying to make sense of it? I don't actually know, but I'm just trying to figure it out. Do you have anything, Kyle? No? About the rings specifically?
Yeah, I mean, not really on that. I'm still sort of stuck deciding, like I said in a previous episode, whether it is the king or the duke who's in charge. Because there's not really any difference between them. They both have rings. There's not said whether one ring is more powerful than the other.
If there's one ring to rule them all, you mean?
Yeah, they're two big players. But then, also in that previous episode, I brought up whatever his face is, the old Dark King, Erewhon, was it? Yeah. Maybe somehow he's in charge, and like neither the king and the duke are same level, and he's on top of this pyramid scheme, and that's why they both have
Pyramid
rings.
scheme.
Pyramid scheme. The puppet master at the top.
Multi-level marketing.
Yeah. See, if I give you a ring and you sell 5 rings, then you're making, and they sell 5 rings. It makes sense. It all comes out in the end.
It's kind of what's
gosh.
happening, though.
That
Let's
is
be
hilarious.
honest.
They're just the 2 top sellers.
That's so funny. But then Stefan keeps talking and he's like trying to explain like how it works. And he said that the king licked every single person who had a ring. That's how it activated or whatever. And I was like, well, dang, no wonder the king was gone all of Throne of Glass, because he was out there licking every Vogue demon prince trying to activate their magical powers.
I mean, to be clear, it is.
I was gonna
like,
say.
he has to like essentially drink their blood or like lick their blood, not just
Not
lick
just
them.
lick them. He's like playing that game that
Go
kids
out
used to play where you like
licking
try to lick someone's elbow because they can't feel it. Like, ooh.
Oh, that's so funny. I get that because that's how Arobynn does it when he like he like licks the blood off of her arm or whatever.
Yeah, the blood.
Yeah, but
It was just a funny perspective because he
goes
didn't
around.
clarify blood. He just said licked them. So
I
King of
mean-
Aedion going around just like licking a bunch of people.
I licked you. Here's your
Gotcha.
ring.
Like you offer him your hand and he like slips a ring on, but instead of kissing it, he's just like,
Let him.
yeah,
Let him.
yeah.
But that's why he was gone. All mystery solved. That's why he was,
Yeah, that's
gone.
why he was gone.
All of
Got it.
Throne of
Yep.
Glass.
Had a lot of people to lick.
That was like the main reason whenever Stefan was talking, I was like, that can't be true. Like, it's so impractical to lick everybody's blood. Like, that would take so much time unless people are hand delivering you little vials of like, here's all the blood of the people I put rings on, and he's just shotgunning them all. Like, all right, we're good. They're under my control. I like it from him saying that. I was like, there's no way that has to be a part of the process.
I was like, wow, that's got to take a long time.
Right. And at first I was like, oh, it's like a reverse blood oath. But I was like, no. This doesn't make sense.
It's an involuntary blood.
I'm dying.
You lent liquor.
He like wakes up in the morning like, what's on the agenda for today? Like 8 to 5, buddy. You're down in the dungeons licking people.
Yeah. That's why his wife doesn't talk anymore. Like, that freak licks everyone that we talk to. And I can't take it anymore.
Poor Georgina. She's seen
He
some
goes to kiss
shit.
her with no tongue. No tongue. But I know where that thing's been. It's been on everyone in the city. I don't want it.
I can't.
Oh my god. Okay, moving on to chapter 43. 3. There's like this quick little throwaway line that Arobynn says when he's trying to distract Aelin, like at the dinner. And it's just kind of dismissed. But I just want to know if it's important or if we know who this is. He says, why, just today, one of the top opiate dealers was caught by the king's men and killed. Such a pity. He escaped the slaughter at the Shadow Market, only to be caught buying dinner a few blocks away. But I don't know if we know who that is or if that is important. It just caught my attention.
Yeah. I didn't honestly think about it at all until I saw your note about it, and I went back and like read around it. It really is all that's said in it, because I think she says like, oh, he's just trying to distract the conversation. But now that I'm thinking about it, maybe it will come back. I don't think we know who it is, but maybe it will come back as information, because like information used to where the Shadow Market is now, because it says he escaped, but where to? Like he was found later at some place eating, but he had to go somewhere, and maybe other people escaped and moved their stores to some secret shadowier location for
shadowier market. When she goes to the Shadow Market though with Kale and they're like fake looking at daggers and they're having this whole rebel conversation, on the way there she does say that there's like another booth that the opiate smells so strong that even though he's trying to hide it under his table or something, that you can still know that that's what he's selling. And it was like part of her conversation to like talk about the sketchy things that kind of happens there. So that was my guess. Was it just that guy? I don't really know why he specifically is being talked about here or hunted down.
Maybe that's how they'll find him, is Rowan can sniff out that smell and they'll find the shadowier market.
Well, he got killed, didn't he? Is that not the whole conversation?
No, he got taken by the king's men, but surely his opiates and supplies are still there. Wherever
it says he is. Oh, his supplies. Okay,
he was killed. But
it says he was slaughtered. That's a big.
Oh,
he's
gotcha.
For sure gone.
Yeah. I don't know. I think you could come back from a slaughter.
Just put a flesh wound.
It doesn't say he was slaughtered. He escaped the slaughter at the Shadow Market. Only but caught buying dinner a few blocks away.
But before that, it says he was caught by the king's men and killed.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Wow, reading is hard.
Did you read the book?
Not really, honestly.
Did you read the quote that's in the notes?
Either way, his supplies are still going to be there, and I'm sure they could sniff it out with Rowan's super nose.
Super sniffer.
Yeah, super sniffer. And maybe find some other stuff in the Shadow Market.
When it first said something about opiates or whatever, I thought it was going to be where Ren and Aedion and Kale went. Whenever like Ren came and he was injured and they went there to hide and Kale had to fake that he was like high on drugs or whatever, and that whole scene that we thought was funny. But I'm pretty sure that was a female lady who ran the place. Yeah. And so I didn't think it was the same. And
wasn't that like a brothel? It wasn't the Shadow Market. I think it was like a brothel.
No, it's not the Shadow Market. She had her own. It was not brothel. I think it was just like an
opiate
drug
den.
Yeah, an opiate den. Anyway, this is another, so like Arobynn is trying to like distract her, have these conversations, and I just loved that she literally got so distracted with Rowan and something else that like she didn't even pay attention, because any other time she's been with Arobynn that we've seen, at least before this book, it's like anything he said, she like lived and breathed whatever words he was giving her, and she was just lucky he was talking to her and everything like that. And so just the fact that she's not only just having another conversation and is distracted, but it's also this conversation with Rowan, which just cracks me up. I don't know, it's just cute and flirty and bantery, and I again don't know how you could think they're not talking in each other's head here. Like literally people are talking around them and they're having a full conversation. That he has a physical reaction to. At Kyle.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm glad you agree. But it said, I would pay good money to see 17-year-old Aelin meet 17-year-old Rowan. His green eyes glittered. Arobynn was still talking. 17-year-old Rowan wouldn't have known what to do with you. He could barely speak to females outside his family. And then it was like a little bit later and said that she sucked on her teeth. He would probably have even been more scandalized to learn I'm not wearing any undergarments beneath this dress. And they said the table had rattled as Rowan's knees banged into it. And I was like, Aelin!
How'd she know it was his knee?
Heyo.
John, you picked up on that one so fast.
Maybe I was subconsciously thinking the same thing. Kyle just said it first.
I mean, okay.
He is a man written by Sarah J. Maas, so.
He is the most powerful and strong female.
Pure-blooded.
So funny.
My cheeks hurt.
Yeah, mine too. I'm just dying. Ever since the conversation about licking people, my cheeks have hurt. Okay. Then she like has this whole back and forth with, I don't know that this note is in the right spot. It's not. Or maybe this is when he pulls it out. And it's like her first reaction to
easy.
it.
Whoa.
Hey,
Whoa.
I wouldn't put it past Arobynn. He's the
Skipped way
worst.
ahead here.
Jeez.
Okay, so I do think this is when she is meeting with Arobynn, and Arobynn like brings out, there we go, the amulet finally for her to see, and it was like she had finally seen it, and her immediate reaction was just like not right. Her blood sang, her bones groaned, not right, not right, not right. It's just like an interesting immediate reaction to this thing, and then I was like immediately worried something bad was going to happen, and so far nothing has happened, and I think they kind of describe it later. It's just like all the power that it has, and no human or mortal should like have it, but I don't know, it's freaking me out for the amulet itself. And then it ends with Arobynn being like, oh, and one more thing, and it was an effort to lift a brow as he came close enough to kiss her, embrace her, but he just took her hands in his thumb caressing her palm. I'm gonna enjoy having you back, he purred. Then faster than she could react, he slid the word stone on her finger. And I was like, what? Immediately continue reading.
Mm-hmm.
Then, it's like, oh, it's the end of the night. Oh, here's a chapter break. I'll stop. And I was like, nope, I'm wide awake. We're still reading this thing. Keep going. Like, what just happened?
Do you think, going back to your note before that with the not right, not right, not right, do you think there's any importance to things that are said in threes? It has not been a thing in this book series so far, but I mean, there's only been two things: her saying he's here, he's here, he's here, and her seeing this and saying not right, not right, not right. I just found that interesting.
I don't know.
Maybe nothing will come of it, but it is something I noticed, that it has started doing that to things that she has seen, her specifically, her reaction to things.
Yeah.
All right.
Chapter 44. Arobynn saying, tell me that you love me. And then he says, my name. Say my name when you tell me that you love me. This is disgusting, but I can only picture Jafar from Aladdin. I was like, oh, this scene's terrible. I hate this guy. Just picturing Aladdin. I just had to throw that out there.
And this is when I knew it was fake, like immediately, like before we even find out however many paragraphs later, just because the whole conversation before and the chapter before where she's meeting with him and she knows that Rowan and Aedion can hear everything and they're right there at the door, and Arobynn probably doesn't even know. And so like the fact that this is happening and he licks her hand and she says all these things and neither of them react in like their alpha hole way, then it was like, okay, so something like this has to be an act. Like something's happening here, that this isn't real, because there's no way in anywhere that something like that could happen to her and those two wouldn't have just died immediately trying to save her if that was like really happening. So
this also like sort of solidified some suspicions I had for Kaltain, because of how Aelin acted here is how Kaltain has been acting, where it's very like, I don't even move unless I'm told to. And she's been doing, Kaltain's been doing that with the Duke. He'll like tell her to do something and she just does it. She doesn't speak unless spoken to, which is very unlike all of the other.
I don't think she speaked at all until she said something about Shadowfire, because they were all like, whoa, she spoke. And then Vernon later was like, I heard you finally said something. Why don't you say something to me?
Yeah, which makes me think, because the other, princes or whatever, the Vogue, have spoken things and like said cruel things or bragged about how they've been fighting or whatever.
Like unprompted.
We've not heard any of that voice even from her, which makes me think that she might be in more control than she's letting other people think. Sort of like how Aelin did here, even though, there was no possibility of her being taken over because it was a fake ring anyway. But that act that she's putting on is very similar to how Kaltain is actually acting. If
Kaltain didn't show her like shadow fiery magic, I would think, oh yeah, she could just be faking it. But I feel like the way it's described is the same as the shadows of the other demons and everything. That makes me feel like she has to have some of that evil magic.
It may, right? Yeah, she might, but maybe she's in control of it. Maybe she won against whatever was inside of her.
So I had a comment in here, Arobynn's action of her like leaving after he puts the ring on, his hand grazing her backside as he shooed her out. Ugh, what a frickin' snake. It just proves how like sick he is. It was okay that they were like kind of giving him almost like a second chance, or like trying to prove himself that maybe he has changed kind of thing. Like she needed to be sure before they went ahead with it. But like, I'm still, even after this, I'm still like, did you really think though that he was going to be different? It was just sort of surprising that she did that. But
she's really lucky that he didn't try to like take it a step further. Because
Yeah.
like
In the
immediately
moment.
after this, he goes and sleeps with Lysandra. Like takes it that way. So it's like creepy that he like kind of like alluded like this is what
Yeah.
we're gonna do and whatever. But then like she's I guess lucky that, or he's lucky, whichever way you want to look at it, that he
Yeah.
didn't try to like take it another step further than that.
I think it was his confidence too, that like he had
Yeah.
her and now he's like, oh yeah, it's like I'm gonna enjoy this kind of thing.
I feel like the only reason he didn't do anything more serious in the moment was because Rowan and Aedion
They
were
were
there.
there,
Yeah.
And they were
Yeah.
already,
Home.
yeah. But because he's like taking advantage of the situation and he's so cocky about it, I feel like after she left, before Lysandra slaughtered him, which we will definitely be talking about, I keep picturing him like sitting alone in his room, like trying to whisper little commands from afar, like thinking he's controlling her after she leaves. Because he
I didn't even think about it like that. Yeah.
I thought
That's
even like
funny.
after the door closed, he was just like a yes.
I like that one.
her. Yeah. Like, now
the
tell
best.
Rowan you hate him.
I thought you were like actually trying to figure out what he was doing. And I was like getting ready to tell you like, well, he planned Rowan's death with some people and then he went and slept with Lysandra and then but I like your guys' thoughts better. So but we get back to the apartment and that she kind of like reveals her whole plan, which is freaking epic by the way. And then she goes into her room with Rowan and she's like they're like figuring out what they're going to do with the amulet. And this is like when she's putting it away. And it said she felt Rowan come up behind her, peering over her shoulder, where she knelt into a small compartment. She had picked up the amulet to drop it in the little space when a thread tugged inside her. No, not a thread, but a wind, as if some force barreled from Rowan into her, as if their bond were a living thing and she could feel what it was to be him. So at first, like when I read it, I was like, oh, they're Karanom. But then like how he had such a reaction to it and acted like that wasn't normal. Was the amulet the reason that happened? Like, was she accidentally controlling him somehow? Or was it actually just some sort of Karanom, something happening?
No,
something
I thought it
happened
was
there.
the amulet because it was super
Okay.
weird. And she was like freaked out by that and said that she could like feel the weight of his power. Like she literally was him for a second.
She could whisper in there.
Take off
Yeah.
your shirt.
Unfortunately, they had the opposite kind of evening, which we will get into in a little bit.
Now graze my backside as I'm leaving.
Just a graze. Don't get greedy.
But then she drops it into the compartment. It thudded only once, a dead weight. And then later, she shows that she has a replica of the amulet and that Lysandra is coming up with this. She'd gotten the size, coloring, and weight almost perfect. And that Aelin set it on the vanity like a discarded piece of jewelry, just in case someone asks where it went. So I'm really glad, first of all, that not only was it thought through, but we were also told ahead of time. Because I feel like sometimes it's like you get to a moment and you're like, oh no. And then, oh, it was a fake. She's had since day one, you know, and
Right.
we're not getting duped here. Instead, it's like, okay, we know what the real one is. Here's the fake one. Very cool. And then again,
Yeah.
Lysandra coming in with
Yeah.
just all the help.
The real one had the word marks on the back. Did they replicate those on the replica? Because aren't the word marks themselves? Like, would they not have any effect unless activated in some way? Or would they even know about them to put them on the replica before they actually get it?
I feel like that was the first time that Aelin looked at them and actually understood that they were word marks and trying to figure out what they meant. So she
Oh,
wouldn't
yeah.
know to tell Lysandra, to tell the jeweler.
If they're copying it almost perfectly, there should be some marks on it, even if they're not perfect word marks. Like how she messed up hers and made a freaking portal to hell or whatever.
Yeah, but the marks aren't what makes it the word key. Otherwise, anybody
Right.
could replicate it and make another one. But I don't know if they do have an effect on what.
I didn't know if the marks themselves would put some sort of power into the fake one. And obviously not as powerful, but anyway.
Yeah, I don't know.
I also don't know. But in like episode 1 or 2 of the podcast, John just like offhandedly said go off queen, and we thought it was super funny. And now it's like a whole thing. And I love now that we're in book 5 that everyone just calls her queen. Like offhandedly, like Rowan stood with his queen in the rain and something about my queen making coffee, or like just like literally like so whatever, offhanded, like no big deal. Everyone throws it out there. People actually call her queen, like all the things. And I just love that that's like an actual thing now. And maybe you guys all knew that, and everyone listening, like, oh my God, that's so funny because she's called queen all the time. But I'm just now getting there and understanding that.
So in a way, it was the biggest spoiler. Everybody said
John.
you're so good at hiding them, John. But
Well, you guys didn't figure it out, so.
That is true. I just really like it. I think it's funny.
it was good.
Oh, but then, like, yeah, so her and Rowan are standing on the roof, and they are in the rain, and he does call her queen, but it said that he was breathing in her scent, and they hugged. He let her steal his warmth as long as she needed. It goes to Aelin's point of view, and she was saying that just, like, seeing that dungeon room, this, like, the one that Sam was in, she realized, like, she was just tired. She was tired of death, and she was tired of waiting, and she was tired of saying goodbye, and this is when she kind of, like, tries to, like, make a move on Rowan, which she's really been doing that this whole time. Like, she literally is telling him, like, I'm naked under this and like whatever, but it's this one moment. Yeah, it's this one moment that she like touches his face and like actually tries to make it a thing, and he just says like, don't do that, don't touch me. And I was like, no, Rowan. I like knew it was gonna be that, only because of like how Rowan's been talking about her this whole time. Like the whole time I was cringing for her trying to make this move, knowing he was gonna reject her. But still, like, I get where she's at in her mindset, like same with the soap. And she did that with Kale too. Like she's waited with stuff with Sam and then realized like it's not worth the wait. It's not worth like holding out on whatever, because life is short. And so like having this moment with him, and then for him to just be like, I'm immortal and I live forever, so we got all the time in the world, and just like it's like no.
Well, and he didn't even explain it. And I was like cringing for her too. I felt like this whole scene just put a knot in my stomach, and I was obviously disappointed, but I'm like really glad nothing happened here, because I think it would have cheapened the moment for them if she had finally kissed him after all this time while she's thinking about Arobynn and Sam, and like she's emotionally, she's going through like so much on this specific night. Like Arobynn's literally being murdered right now, like at this moment. And I think she just was responding and she needed comfort, but like I don't think that was the right time for that to happen for them, because that would have been a huge moment in their relationship. I feel like I want it to be specifically because of Rowan and Aelin, and not because of like all of these external situations happening. I don't know.
Yeah, I get that. But like she did say, and I didn't leave the quote in here, but she said something about like she's known for a while, and she's essentially like being separated and like, you know, reaching over to the empty side of the bed and stuff. So like it was about him too.
Yeah. I just think the timing of this specific instance would have been like very poor taste.
I don't know. I think it could have led to something if they would have like had conversation, but I guess like it could just happen where they don't need that because they've talked about it beforehand or whatever. So,
yeah, I don't know.
Anyways, and then it like shifts over to Lysandra's POV, and it just said, for Wesley, for Sam, for Aelin, and for herself, for the child she'd been, for the 17-year-old on her bidding night, for the woman she'd become, her heart in shreds, her invisible wound still bleeding. It was so very easy to sit up and slice the knife across Arobynn's throat.
Hell yeah.
Put a bow on it.
Yeah, and like such a great like lead up to that moment. And I'm really glad that Lysandra like got to have the kill, as much as like murder is bad. Let's make that clear. When we first learned like on the roof that Aelin like gave it to Lysandra, I was like, whoa, okay, I didn't expect that. But then like we get to hear, and I'm like really thinking about it, because like for all Aelin really had to go through with Arobynn, which was awful, but like Lysandra really went through it because of Arobynn, and like literally having to sleep with him and her best friend, her love of her life, everyone that she knew to die and to like be stuck that way. I was just really glad that she got to have that
Yeah.
moment of justice, and Aelin still kind of gets one later too. So it was really well done.
Yeah.
I only wrote ditto and also called it because I'm pretty sure last episode
You
I said
did.
she'd get the kill.
It was another like offhand joking comment.
I know, it's freaking crazy, man.
I'm just going to keep making as many jokes as I can so they can all be right. Anyway, in chapter 45, I only put a note here since earlier Lauren said we can't pass Dorian's chapters without at least acknowledging what your boy's going through.
That's right.
Pretty sure he was audience to a torture in this chapter.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
torturing someone for
Yeah,
information.
he like put a mask on the guy's face.
Yeah, and I think it was one that the guy recognized him. Like one of the times that he's in the prison or the jail, one of the people recognized.
It wasn't that one. It was an earlier
It was the one
time.
before that.
Oh, that's-
It was like a familiar face or something.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
and like
we're
called
talking
out for
about-
him
yeah.
for help, and he just like stood
Yeah.
there and watched or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pour another one out.
Chapter 46. Her presence was requested immediately by Turn Harding and Mullen, the official law firm of the Assassin's Guild.
That's right.
I loved this part so freaking much
I love
because I have no idea what episode it is that we talk about this whole like Turn Harding and Mullen, and like we joked about like what kind of lawyers would they be, and I'm pretty sure we settled on them being like estate lawyers so that when they killed people they would get to keep their homes and all their
Totally
money.
forgot about that. That's pretty solid. Wow.
That's exactly what happens here. I was cracking up. It's so perfect. We are hilarious. Go team.
I think this was literally like 5 episodes ago. Like this is like the first Assassin's Blade episode.
Oh, so good. And then just like her stepping into Arobynn's house, just like one last time, you have to wear this mask one last time, and then you can bury Selena Sardothian forever. And
Yep.
I was like, oh crap, what is about to happen?
Yeah.
I got scared more than anything because like Selena can be scary. Like Aelin is this like kind
Yeah.
of like she can be epic, but then she's like laughing and joking and like super funny. And then like Selena is completely opposite of that. I also loved that like Rowan and Aedion got to like see that from her. I think that helps them maybe put some pieces together for them or like understand where she came from, maybe show that she can handle herself and we don't have to be these like guys to protect her and take care of her kind of a thing. So like the whole scene in chapter 47 was just like insanely cool, but Lysandra's just there and she's like crying and she's covered in Arobynn's blood and stuff, which like shout out for Lysandra to not just be throwing up the entire time,
Yeah.
even though she knows she's faking it. Like she killed him, but like you're just sitting in his blood. She slept in it all night. All the things to like get to that point is absolutely disgusting. But it said just offhandedly because Selena's being Selena and like yelling
Yeah.
and screaming, and Lysandra's being Lysandra and is just like crying and freaking out. Lysandra was doing something and it just had spectacular performance. And just a tiny bit of me was concerned that like Lysandra does give these insane performances and she is really good at tricking a bunch of people. And so it just makes me nervous like that I might get tricked by her performance or something that Lysandra is doing, that maybe I still can't trust her 100%. I'm going back and forth with Lysandra on what I think of her character in general. So I don't know. I know that she's been super helpful and everything now. So I'm hoping that that's where we're at. And this really was just a performance, but I got a little nervous. I don't know.
Were you looking something up, John?
No, I was writing something down.
He's writing my quotes.
Yep, I'm just notating for Lauren.
Thank you, John.
Our podcast stenographer.
Yeah, that's right. Need a written document.
Taking the minutes.
Written record.
Because the giant
3
script
hours?
we're
Yeah, I'm taking a
reading
minute.
that's hundreds of pages long isn't enough for that.
That's right. Need to be handwritten. Anyway.
Part of the same conversation, I just was dying at the line where Aelin says, "Did I ask for your goddamned opinion, Clarice?" My head immediately went to, "Nobody asked you, Patrice." How I Met Your Mother.
That's a good reference.
When I saw your picture of
Yeah.
Robin from How I Met Your Mother yelling at Patrice, I was cracking up. And like whenever I came into the notes, yours were the only ones there. So it was like really short. So it was like one of the first things that I saw. And then the whole time I was writing notes, I was cracking up. So that is a great reference. Yeah, so we're in this like meeting. The guy from the bank, I think it was like the master of the bank or the bank master, some really cool name, came in to like read the will basically, and it just said, Aelin leaned against the wall beside the doorway, arms crossed. Aedion flanked her left side and Rowan on her right. And I was like, oh, this is like a cool group. Like, this should be like the movie poster. Like, this is like that shot that you see all over the advertisements and stuff. Like, I could just see it and them just being freaking epic. And because they're trying to like be Selena Sardothian and her like people that work with her, and they got their hoods up and their angry faces, and I just loved it. So good.
It's their hip hop album dropping.
Right, that could be it too. I love it.
Speaking of movie posters, Lauren and I went and saw a movie recently, and we don't get to do that very often at all because kids and life. And we were sitting there watching like movie previews we had no idea were coming out, and I leaned over and was like, wouldn't it be crazy if we just didn't know there was a Throne of Glass movie and we just saw like major spoilers right now? We were in danger of that, but it didn't happen. We're good.
No, I think I would know if that movie was coming out, but I was like, oh my gosh, now I'm scared. Spoilers are everywhere, and you have to be on your guard. You got to be on guard.
On guard.
Stay vigilant.
Yes.
Keep your head on a swivel.
I'm just started to get memes of this series in my feed. Just started. And luckily they've been early book memes. I mean, like, we're past a lot of the story. So I have like a 50-50 shot if it's a spoiler or not.
It's honestly probably, the statistic is still probably higher than that.
I'm sure more memes are made of later in the story. But in terms of timeline, book-wise, I'm looking at the collection there.
Yeah, I was going to say that though, but like just because we're in this book, but the last however many are so many pages that we're still probably like halfway maybe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But to call back on a little bit of old Kyle in the podcast, it's going to take like 30 chapters for anything to happen anyway, so.
It's going to take like 700 books before Aelin and Rowan start making out.
I saw so many spoilers on social media when we were reading this series, but it was all fan art of like couples. And it ruined a lot for me. But still, even the quotes and the fan art that I saw, like nothing actually ended up happening the way that I expected it to, which was nice. Like even things that I thought were spoiled, when I got there, it had like a totally different meaning than I thought. Or like the way that it came about was like so different than what I was imagining, that was still nice. But the spoilers are everywhere.
Even on our social media, there's like people will leave a comment or something, and I was like, oh, I just saw a spoiler, and you're always like, that means nothing, you're fine, like calm down. But I'm like on guard and like no one's gonna spoil this book. But I did see a couple's picture just like you were talking about, and I texted Connor and I was like, I just saw a spoiler, I think, but I don't want to tell you what I saw because you're gonna confirm or deny, and then I'll know if it's actually a spoiler or not. Or I can live in maybe it was just like a fan hopes this couple, but maybe it's not real kind of in between world. And so I'm just going to live in this in between world and not have anyone confirm or deny this theory.
That's fair though, because even with like Sarah J. Maas's other series, there are people who make fan art for couples that like didn't actually happen in the book. They're just like,
headcanon.
Yeah. And there's a lot of that because there's a lot of debate about some of them. And part of it's because like ACOTAR and Crescent City aren't finished series yet, and like obviously this one is, but there's still like, I mean, some of the stuff you see, it's like, I don't know. Anyway, hopefully it wasn't a spoiler.
I'll tell you if it happens.
It's hard for me because scrolling through TikTok, there are many fantasy books that have powerful women with fire powers. And it starts off like, she was fire and heat. When I was like, I'll just scroll past it because I have no idea if it's going to be her or not. So I'm just not going to pay attention.
Yeah. I did finally see a fan pic of Rowan with short hair. And maybe I had seen him before and I just didn't realize that's who it was. But now that I know he got his hair cut. And so I sat there and like I really stared at it. That sounds so bad.
I bet you did.
Lauren's got a poster hanging up in her bedroom now.
I was wondering where that came from.
No, it's just because like I'm afraid to look up fan art, but it's been so long since they were described as what they look like. And then you get these like little tiny things here and there. So it was like, okay, this is what he actually looks like whatever. Oh, that's what the tattoo or like that's where it starts. Like that kind of thing.
That's what he looks like taking a bath. I'm glad I Googled that.
No,
I can still send you spoiler-free fan art. I can be your trusted friend. You can ask me.
I know, but sometimes I like what I think.
Yeah.
You know, but oh well.
That's what I was going to say. It's not even a spoiler of what's happening. It's just like, I don't want my image affected.
His tattoo has definitely thrown me off, though. That was like on his face or something. So that was really what it was. But That's okay. Anyways,
We're so close.
we
Let's
are
read
like
the will.
4 notes away from the end of this episode. Okay, so it is the bank master person, and it said, it is in my will that the sole beneficiary of all my fortune, assets, and holdings should go to my heir, Selena Sardothian. I was like, oh my gosh. And then like later we find out like she switched the whole thing and it was like cool and epic and like however it worked, and shout out to her for being cool. But I just love when she says like, oh, Queen of Assassins sounds nice, doesn't it?
Just rubbing it in.
I know. And she just played the role so well. But then, yeah, she like basically convinces the lawyers, what are their actual names? Turn, Harding, and Mullen, or whatever it is, yeah, to collect enough money to basically buy it all from her. But I love that she just like kicks everyone out. And she's just like being a total boss lady, Queen of the Assassins, and then says to Aedion, you said you needed money for an army, Aedion, so here's your money, all of it. And every coin is for Terrasen. It was the least that Arobynn owed us. So first of all, epic. So
Yep.
cool and super helpful, and glad that Arobynn's actually good for something. At least his money is.
I'm really surprised she didn't take the piano out of everything in that place. I feel like she would have wanted to take the piano.
Wasn't there not
forte.
one there anymore?
I
don't
thought
remember.
it was still there because she was sad she had to leave it behind when she moved.
I thought the piano was gone at some point because that's why she was staying late at like Madame Florian's, like after her dance lessons or whatever. She would stay and play the piano, or was that somewhere else?
She did do that, but it was because she didn't want to be at Arobynn's. Like she had
Yes.
moved out.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so
yeah,
she
yeah,
was
yeah.
doing that instead of
right.
going back to the...
Yeah, that's fair. Well,
She'll
She
buy
can
a
go
new one.
to the giant empty theater and play the piano. And also, she probably doesn't plan to live in this tiny baby apartment for very long.
yeah, where's she going to put it?
She'll live in a giant piano.
And it's like upstairs too, isn't it?
Yeah. She got big,
She
strong,
has- yeah,
fey
Rowan and
males.
Aelin.
They can lift a piano.
They'll
It's
fight
light
over
work.
who has to carry the bench, basically.
And then she goes downstairs and she goes to the same room that Sam is, which I kind of hated, but kind of like that. I guess that she got like some revenge in that moment too. She lifted her father's sword and severed Arobynn's head from his body. It rolled to the side with a vulgar thud, and she smiled grimly at the corpse, just to be sure. Was all she said. Oh, and then that's it. That's the end of part 1 of the book. So epic. And like I said earlier, like Lysandra got the kill, but she also gets her own little moment for revenge and like put it all behind her, and just so good.
So as we wrap up, any thoughts and theories before we get into the next section?
I feel like now that we're halfway through the book, it's time for some information to be revealed to our characters to combine what has been 2 stories into one. So either Aelin and her court learn what the king and the witches are truly up to, or the other way around. And that way we can start to see some momentum towards them all meeting, maybe less jumping so far back and forth between POVs and it being sort of one cohesive thing. I wouldn't be surprised if more people came to the good side, obvious ones like Lysandra or Elide, but also less expected ones like Manon and Kaltain even. Like I said earlier, I really feel like she's hiding something and that she's gonna be a BA. I feel like the story will overall shift to those involved with the Volgan dealing with their either submitting to their power or overcoming it, just because that feels like the natural next step to me. Story-wise, I feel like there's not really... That's where you go. Where else do you go?
Yeah, I'm going to like ditto most of what Kyle said. I feel like it makes sense that the 2 groups like start at least learning about each other, because like Elide talked about Aelin and said that name to Manon. So I feel like if Manon hears that information, then that will mean something and give them hope. But my big thought and theory for the next like section is that the next section is called Queen of Light. And so I'm hoping that it goes back with like what she talked about in Heir of Fire. And so I looked up the quote from Heir of Fire, but this is after she defeats the Vogue in chapter 54 of Heir of Fire. And it said, she would fill the world with it, with her light, her gift. She would light up the darkness so brightly that all who were lost or wounded or broken would find their way to it. A beacon for those who still dwelled in that abyss. It would not take a monster to destroy a monster, but light to drive out the darkness. So I'm hoping that it's like with this like Queen of Light, and that all these people start coming out and have hope and come together and start, I don't know, like building an army or something and doing all the things. That's what I'm hoping for.
That might even
Epic.
go back to like Queen of Shadows, the section where she is like owning the shadow world, shadow market assassins and all that, and the Queen of Light owning her new world, sort of like how her flame went out, but embers were relit. Embers aren't flames, but they're light.
Ooh, I like it. Okay, so we go to the cry counter. I have cried an extra time at the theater with the piano, so I am up to 9. Connor?
And I also cried one more time about soap, so I'm up to 3.
Kyle and John? Womp
Nothing.
Nope.
womp. All right. I want it to happen. Cry.
Maybe we'll get them during Kingdom of Ash.
Cry, damn
We'll
it.
see. Well, that is a wrap on episode 14. Join us next week as we start part 2 of Queen of Shadows, chapters 48 to 65.
And while you're here, please rate, review, subscribe, and follow wherever you're listening. Visit our website for merch and other resources. While you're there, sign up for our monthly newsletter. And lastly, check out our Patreon for community and perks. Catch you on the flip side, nerds.
Bye-bye. See you later. Love you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.